Friends, video is too big. If you don't want to watch the full video, then go to the description below the video. There I have written all the chapters and timestamps of the video. Just click on the timestamps, then video will start from where you want to watch. This is Bori Critical Mahabharat book chapter 99. Let's start. And if you want to see our previous videos, then click the channel name or picture below the video. Then go to the video or playlist option and please press the red subscribe option and press the bell icon for my latest video updates. Sanjay said, "O great king, it was midday and the encounter raged. There was a terrible battle destructive of people between Bhishma and the Somakas. Gangeya, best among Rathas, Gangeya means Bhishma, pierced the Pandava soldiers with hundreds and thousands of sharp arrows. Your father Devbrata crushed those soldiers like a herd of cattle crushing reaped paddy. Dhritarashtra, Shikhandi, Virata, and Drupada attacked Bhishma in that battle and struck the Mahabharat with arrows. He pierced Dhritarashtra and Virata with 3 arrows each, O descendant of the Bharata lineage. He then dispatched an iron arrow towards Virata. O king, pierced by Bhishma, the destroyer of enemies, in that battle, those great archers became as angry as serpents that have been trod upon. Shikhandi pierced the grandfather of the Bharatas, but the undecaying one threw him to be a woman and did not strike him back. In that battle, Dhritarashtra was overcome with rage. Like a flaming fire, he used 3 arrows to pierce the grandfather in the arms and the chest. Drupada pierced Bhisma with 25 arrows, Virata with 10 arrows, and Shikhandi with 25. O great king, the great soul Bhishma was pierced in that battle and was as beautiful as a blossoming red Ashoka tree in the spring. Gangeya pierced them back with 3 arrows that travelled straight. O venerable one, he served Virata's bow with a broad-headed arrow. In the forefront of that battle, he took up another bow and pierced Bhishma with 5 sharp arrows and his charioteer with 3. O great king, Bhima, Draupadi's 5 sons, the 5 brothers of Kaikeya and Satyavata Satyaki, desiring Yudhishthira's welfare, attacked Gangeya. They wished to protect Panchala Dhritarashtra in that battle. O Lord of men, all those on your side raised their weapons to protect Bhishma and attacked the Pandu soldiers with their own soldiers. There was an extremely terrible battle between those on your side and those on their side. It involved men, horses, chariots, and elephants, and extended Yama's kingdom. Charioteers clashed with charioteers and sent them to Yama's abode. Others attacked men, elephant riders, and horse riders. They used straight tufted arrows to dispatch each other to the hereafter. O Lord of the earth, many terrible weapons were used there. Chariots lost their horses, rathas, and charioteers, and in that battle were dragged away in different directions, O king. In that battle, they crushed many men and horses. They seemed to be like that wind, or like the cities of the Gandharvas, energetic and armored rathas were bereft of their chariots. They were adorned with earrings and headdresses, and all of them were ornamented with golden armlets. They were the equals of the sons of the gods in beauty and bravery, and Shakras equal in fighting. They surpassed uh, Vaishravana in prosperity and Brihaspati in wisdom. O Lord of the world, the brave ones who were there were the lords of all the worlds. They were seen to be driven away like ordinary men. O best of men, the tuskers were bereft of the best of riders. They ran around and fell down, shrieking loudly and crushing their own ranks. O venerable one, their armor, whisks, umbrellas, and standards were strewn around, as were the housing bells and lances. Devastated, they were seen to run away in the 10 directions. They were like mountains or clouds and roared like rain clouds. O Lord of the earth, some elephant riders were deprived of their elephants both on your side and on theirs. They were seen to run away in that encounter. They were horses that had come from many countries and were decorated with gold. They were as fast as the wind and were there in hundreds and thousands. With the horses slain, horse riders grasped swords in every direction. They were seen to run away or chase others away. In that encounter, in the great battle, elephants clashed with elephants. The were running away and swiftly crushed infantry and steeds. O king, in that battle, elephants crushed chariots and chariots clashed against infantry and horses. O king, in that battle, horses crushed men in the curse of the encounter. O king, in this fashion they crushed each other in diverse ways. That terrible battle raged and it gave rise to great fear. A fearful river began to flow with blood and its waves. It was choked with masses of bones, and the hair was like moss and weeds. Chariots were the legs, and arrows were the currents with horses, as the unassailable fish. It was covered with heads as pebbles. It was infested with elephants as crocodiles. Armor and headdresses constituted the foam, bows were islands, and swords were turtles. Flags and pennants were trees along the banks. Men were the banks that the river destroyed. It was infested with large numbers of predatory creatures, and it extended Yama's kingdom. O king, in that great battle, many brave Kshatriyas gave up their fear. They shouted to cross the river on boats made out of horses, elephants, and chariots. In that battle, this river conveyed all the cowards who had become overcome by lassitude, just as Vatarni conveys all those who are dead to the capital of the king of the dead. The Kshatriyas present witnessed the great carnage. They exclaimed, "It is because of Duryodhana's crimes that the Kauravas are headed towards destruction. The sons of Pandu possess many qualities. Why did Dhritarashtra's son, the Lord of Men, hate them? He is evil in his soul. He has been overcome by Average or descendant of the Bharata lineage, many words of this kind were heard there. They were full of praise for the Pandavas and were extremely terrible about your sons, O descendant of the Bharata lineage. On hearing these words spoken by all the warriors, your son Duryodhana, who had caused offense to all the worlds, spoke these words to Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, and Shalya. Fight with pride. What is the reason for delay? O king, the extremely terrible battle between the Kurus and the Pandavas raged again, a consequence of the gambling with the dice. O Vichitravirya's son, you paid no attention when the great souled ones tried to restrain you then. Behold the fruits of that, O king, O lord of the earth. The sons of Pandu, their soldiers, their followers, and the Kauravas do not desire to protect their lives in this battle. That is the reason there is this terrible destruction of people. O tiger among men, O king, it has been caused by destiny and your evil policy. Next chapter 100. Sanjay said, O tiger among men, there were kings who were following Shusharma's lead, and Arjuna used sharp arrows to dispatch them to the abode of the king of the dead. In that battle, Shusharma pierced Partha with arrows. He again pierced Vasudeva with 70 and Partha with 9. The Maharatha, who was Shakra's son, repulsed them with his own shower of arrows. In that battle, he dispatched Susarma's warriors to Yama's abode. They were slain by Partha like the fire at the destruction of a yuga. O king, those Maharathas were overcome with fear and fled from the field of battle. O venerable one, some abandoned their horses, others gave up their chariots, and still others discarded their elephants and fled in the 10 directions. Others fled from the field of battle with their horses, elephants, and chariots. O Lord of earth, they ran away with great speed in that great battle. Foot soldiers threw away their weapons. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, as they ran away, they ignored everything else. They were repeatedly restrained by Susharma of the Trigartas and by other chiefs among the kings. But they do not stay in that battle. On seeing that his army was being sold, your son Duryodhana placed Bhisma at the forefront of the battle, ahead of all the soldiers. Using the best of his great endeavor, he attacked Dhananjaya for the sake of protecting the life of the Lord of Trigarta. He alone remained stationed in the battle together with all his brothers and showered many different kinds of arrows. The remaining men ran away, O king. The Pandavas were armored. For Falguna's sake, they used their best endeavor to go to the spot where Bhishma was. They knew that the wielder of Gandiva was invincible, but cries of lamentation had arisen in all directions from the spot where Bhishma was. In that encounter, the brave one with the palm tree on his standard used straight tufted arrows to shoot the army of the Pandavas. All the Kurus and the Pandavas seemed to be one single mass. O great king, they fought and the sun reached midday. Satyaki priest Kritavarma with 5 iron arrows. The brave one remained stationed in that battle, releasing thousands of arrows. King Drupada priest Drona with sharp arrows. He again priest him with 70 arrows and his charioteer with 7. Bhimsena priest his great grandfather King Balika, and emitted a loud roar like a tiger in a forest. Arjuna's son pierced Chitrasena with many fast arrows. Chitrasena was severely pierced in the chest with 3 arrows. These two great ones among men encountered each other in the battle and were radiant, O king. They were like the extremely terrible Buddha and Shatanishchara in the sky. Subhadra's son, the destroyer of enemy heroes, rode powerfully, means Abhimanyu, after having slain his horses with 4 arrows and his charioteer with 9, O Lord of the earth. With his horses slain, the Maharatha swiftly descended from his chariot and climbed onto Durmukha's chariot. Drona preached Drupada with straight tufted arrows, and the valorous one also swiftly preached his charioteer. At the head of his soldiers, King Drupada was thus oppressed, remembering his earlier hostility. He treated on swift horses in an instant. Bhimsena deprived King Balika of his horses, charioteer, and chariot, while all the soldiers look on. O great king, Balika, supreme among men, was overcome by panic and confronted a great danger. He swiftly climbed onto Maharatha Lakshmana's chariot. Satyaki repulsed Maharatha Kritavarma, O king. He attacked the grandfather with many arrows. He pierced Bharata with 60 sharp arrows that were tipped with hair and seemed to be dancing around on his chariot. Brandishing his large bow, the grandfather hurled a giant and iron javelin towards him. It was decorated with gold and was extremely swift. It was as beautiful as the maiden of the serpents. On seeing it suddenly descend, extremely energetic and like death, the immensely famous Varshnaya destroyed it with his dexterity. That extremely terrible javelin could not touch Varshnaya. It fell down on the face of the ground like a giant meteor that has lost its brilliance. O king, at this, Varshnaya forcefully grasped the and hurled a javelin towards the grandfather's chariot. It was terrible to behold. In that great battle, it was hurled through the force of Varshnya's arms. It advanced with great force, like a fatal knight advancing towards a man. O descendant of the birth lineage, on seeing it suddenly descend, Gangeya, means Bhishma, used two extremely sharp Shuraprara arrows to slice it into two, so that it fell down on the ground. Having severed the javelin, he angrily struck Satyaki on the chest with 9 arrows, and the destroyer of enemies smiled as he did this. O Pandu's elder brother, the Pandavas surrounded Bhishma in that battle with their chariots, elephants, and horses so that Madhava might be rescued. A tumultuous battle commenced, and it made the body hair stand up. In that encounter, both the Pandavas and the Kurus desired victory. Next chapter 101. So Sanjay was also present in that Mahabharat war. After war, Sanjay said everything to Dhritarashtra. Okay. Sanjay said, O great king, Duryodhana saw that Bhishma was angry in the battle. O great king, he also saw that he was surrounded by the Pandavas like clouds in the sky surrounding the sun after summer is over. He addressed Dushasana, his brave and great archer. Bhishma is the destroyer of enemies, O bull among the Bharata lineage. He has been covered on all sides by the brave Pandavas, O brave one. It is your duty to protect the extremely great souled one. In this battle, protect Bhishma, our grandfather, so that he can kill the Panchalas and the Pandavas in this encounter. I think that it is our duty to protect Bhishma. Bhishma, the great archer, is our protector and is also our grandfather. With all your soldiers surrounded the grandfather, if you protect him, you will protect a difficult task in this battle. In the encounter, having been thus addressed, your son Dushasana stationed himself around Bhishma, surrounding him with a large army. Subala's son had many hundreds and thousands of horses. The riders had polished spears and wielded swords and spikes. They were proud and extremely swift. This was a force with standards. These supreme among men were trained and skilled in battle. They surrounded Nakula, Sadeva, and Pandava Dharmaraja from every direction and repulsed those best of men. King Duryodhana sent 10,000 brave horse riders to restrain the Pandavas. They penetrated with great force like Garudas advancing to do battle. O king, the earth was struck with the hooves and trembled because of the sound. A great noise from the hooves of the horses could be heard then. It was like a large forest of bamboos being burned on a mountain as they advanced there. A great cloud of dust arose. It rose up into the path of the sun and showered the sun. The army of the Pandavas was agitated because of the force of these horses as if a flock of swans had descended onto a large lake with great force. Nothing could be heard because of the sounds of nothing. O great king, in that battle, King Yudhishthira and the Pandavas, who were Madri's sons, spiritedly checked the force of those horse riders like the shoreline checks the four forceful waves of the great ocean on the night of the full moon. When the waters are full because of the rains, O king, the Rathas used straight-tipped arrows to sever the heads of the horse riders from their bodies. O great king, they were slain and brought down by those who wielded firm bows. It was like elephants skilled by mighty elephants and hurled into mountainous caverns. They roamed around in the 10 directions and used extremely sharp javelins and straight-tipped arrows to slice off the heads. O bull among the Bharata lineage, the horse riders were struck by swords. Their heads fell down like fruit from large trees. O king, horses and their riders were seen to be slain there. They fell down and were falling down in hundreds and thousands. Having been thus slaughtered, the horses were overcome by fear and fled. It was like deer trying to protect their lives at the arrival of a lion. O great king, in that great battle the Pandavas vanquished the enemy, having driven the enemy away in the battle. They blew on their conch shells and sounded their drums. In the midst of the soldiers, Duryodhana was seen to be distressed. O best of the Bharata lineage, he spoke these words to the king of Madra. The eldest son of Pandu was vanquished by maternal uncle. O mighty armed one, while you have looked on, the powerful one has driven my soldiers away. O mighty armed one, repulse him the way the shoreline beats back the abode of Makaras. On account of your strength and valor, you are known to be irresistible. Having heard the words of Your son, the powerful Shalya, advanced with a large number of chariots to the spot where King Yudhishthira was stationed. Shalya suddenly descended with an extremely large force. With the thrust of the great ocean, Pandava encountered him in that battle. In that encounter, Maratha Dharmaraja used 10 arrows to swiftly strike the king of Madra between the breasts. Nakula and Sahadeva struck him with 3 arrows that were aimed straight. The king of Madra pierced each of them with 3 arrows. He again pierced Yudhishthira with 60 sharp arrows. Overcome with anger, he struck the two sons of Madri with 2 arrows. The mighty armed Bhima then beheld the king in that battle. He approached the king of Madra, means Shalya, as if advancing into the jaws of death. The vanquisher of enemies advanced to the spot where Yudhishthira was stationed in that battle. An extremely terrible and fearful battle raged. The sun was blazing in the other direction then. Next chapter 102. Sanjay said, your father was enraged in that battle. He used supreme and sharp arrows to pierce the Parthas and their soldiers in every direction. So Sanjay was also present in that Mahabharat war. After war, he told everything to Dhritarashtra. Okay. He pierced Bhima with 12 arrows and Satyaki with 9, Nakula with 3 arrows and Sahadeva with 7. He struck Yudhishthira with 12 arrows in his chest and arms. The immensely strong one then pierced Drishtidumya and roared. Nakula pierced him with 20 arrows and Madhava with 3. Drishtidumya pierced the grandfather back with 70 arrows, Bhimsena with 5 and Yudhishthira with 12. Having pierced Satyaki, Drona pierced Bhimsena. He pierced each of them with 5 sharp arrows that resembled Yama's staff, but each of them pierced the bull among Brahmanas back with 3 arrows that were straight in their aim and were like giant snakes. The Sobiras, the Kitavas, those from the east, those from the west, and those from the north, the Malavas, the Abhishahas, the Shurasenas, the Shibis, and the Vasatyas did not avoid Bhishma in that battle. Though they were slaughtered by his sharp arrows, other great shouldered ones on the side of the Pandavas were slaughtered. The Pandavas were attacked by those who wielded many weapons in their hands, O king, but the Pandavas still surrounded the grandfather. The invincible one was surrounded on all sides by a large number of chariots. Consuming the enemy, he blazed up like a fire engendered in a deserted forest. His chariot was the source of the fire. The bow, swords, javelins, and clubs were the kindling. His arrows were the sparks. Bhishma was himself the fire that consumed the bulls among the Kshatriyas. His arrows had golden tips and the feathers of vultures. They were extremely energetic. He enveloped the enemy force with barbed, hollow, and iron arrows. He used sharp arrows to bring down elephants and chariots. That large number of chariots looked like a forest of palm trees with the heads lopped off. O king, in that battle, the mighty armed one, supreme among all wielders of weapons, deprived chariots, elephants, and horses of their riders, and twang of his bow string and the slapping of his palms were like the clap of thunder. O descendants of the Bharata lineage, all the beings were agitated and trembled. O bull among the Bharata lineage, your father's arrow were incapable of being countered, released from Bhishma's bow. Those arrows did not only strike the armor of the bodies. O king, brave ones were slain on their chariots. O great king, with the swift horses still yoked, we saw them being dragged around all over the field of battle. There were 14,000 Maharathas from the Chedis, the Kashis, and the Kurushas. They were famous, born in noble lineages, and were ready to give up their lives. Their standards were decorated with gold, and all of them refused to retreat from their field of battle. They clashed against Bhishma in that battle as if against death with a gaping mouth. All of them were submerged in the world of the hereafter together with their horses, chariots, and elephants. O king, we saw hundreds and thousands of chariots. Some had their floors and axles shattered, other had completely broken wheels. The bumpers of the chariots were fragmented and the chariots were brought down. O Lord of the earth, O venerable one, arrows, excellent armor, spikes, clubs, masses, swords, arrows with iron heads, the floors of chariots, quivers, and wheels were broken and were strewn around. There were arms that still held bows and swords. There were heads with earrings. There were palm guards and finger guards and standards that had been brought down. There were bows scattered into many fragments. All these were scattered on the ground, O king. There were elephants with the riders slain and horses devoid of riders. They lay there in hundreds and thousands. The brave ones made every effort to restrain the Maharathas who were running away, but they did not succeed because of the oppression created by Bhishma's arrows. With valor like that of the great Indra, he slaughtered that large army. O great king, it was destroyed in such a way that no two people ran away together. Chariots, elephants, and horses were pierced, and standards and seats brought down. There was lamentation in the army of the sons of Pandu, and they lost their senses. Father killed the son, and the son killed the father. Driven by the force of destiny, a friend attacked a beloved friend. Many soldiers in the army of the sons of Pandu tore apart their armor. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, with disheveled hair, they were seen to run away. They were like a herd of cattle, crazy with fear and running around. Chariot riders, elephants, and soldiers in the army of the sons of Pandu were seen to be shrieking in piteous tones. On seeing that the army was routed, the descendant of the Yadava lineage controlled the supreme chariot and spoke to Partha Vibhutsu. Means Krishna spoke to Partha, Arjuna. O Partha, the moment that you have wished for has now arrived. O tiger among men, strike and free yourself from this confusion. O brave one, O Partha, earlier in the assembly of kings in Virata's city, and in Sanjay's presence, you said, I will slay all the soldiers in the army of the sons of dhritarashtra with Bhishma and Drona at the forefront. I will kill them and their followers and all those who fight against me in the battle. O Konteya, O destroyer of enemies, do this and make your words come true. O bull among the Bharata lineage, remember the dharma of Kshatriyas and fight. Thus addressed by Vasudeva, Bibhatsu lowered his face and cast a sideway glance, as if unwillingly he spoke these words: having killed those who should not be killed, I will obtain the kingdom with hell as the ultimate object. Or is it better to suffer the misery of dwelling in the forest? Which will be better for me? Drive the horses toward Bhishma. I will do what you have asked me to. I will bring down an aged and invincible grandfather of the Kurus. At this, Madhava urged the horses that had the complexion of silver. O king, he took them to the spot where Bhishma was, difficult to look at, like the sun with its rays. On seeing that the mighty armed Partha ready to fight with Bhishma in that battle, Yudhishthira's large army returned again. Bhishma, best of the Kuru lineage, roared repeatedly like a lion. He swiftly showered down arrows on Dhananjaya's chariot. In an instant, because of that great shower of arrows, nothing could be seen of the chariot or the charioteer. However, Vasudeva was without fear. Satvata restored to patience and goaded the horses which had been wounded by Bhishma's arrows. Partha grasped his divine bow that roared like the clouds. We used sharp arrows to sever Bhishma's bow and made it fell down. With the bow severed, Kaurava again grasped a giant bow. In only an instant, your father strung the bow, which made a sound like that of the clouds. But in his anger, Arjuna sliced down this second bow too. At this, Santanu's son praised his dexterity. O Partha, well done. O mighty armed one, O Kunti's son, well done. Having thus addressed him, he grasped another beautiful bow. In that battle, Bhishma released many arrows towards Partha's chariot. Vasudeva displayed many supreme skill in handling the horses. He executed circular motions and avoided all those arrows. Wounded by arrows, Bhishma and Partha, tigers among men, looked beautiful. They were like two angry bulls marked with the signs of horns. Vasudeva saw the Partha was fighting midway. Bhishma was continuously showering down arrows in that battle. Stationed between the two armies, he was the scorching as the sun. He was killing the of the best in the army of Pandu's son against Yudhishthira's forces. Bhishma was like the destruction at the end of a yuga. The mighty armed Madhava, the destroyer of enemy heroes, could not tolerate this. O Venerable One, he abandoned Partha's horses, which had the complexion of silver. Full of anger, the great yogi descended from the great chariot. The powerful one advanced towards Bhishma with his arms as weapons. The spirited one had a whip in his hand and roared repeatedly like a lion. The Lord of the universe seemed to make the earth shudder with his footsteps. Krishna's eyes were coppery red with anger. The infinitely radiant one wished to kill him. In the great battle, those on your side lost their senses. They saw Madhava advanced against Bhishma in that battle, as if he would swallow him up. Bhishma has been slain. Bhishma has been slain. Such lamentations were uttered by the soldiers. All the men were frightened At the sight of Vasudeva's advancing, Janardana was distressed in yellow garments. He was dark blue like a jewel. As he advanced against Bhishma, he was as beautiful as a cloud with a garland of lightning. It was like a lion advancing on an elephant, or the leader of a herd advancing against another bull. The spirited bull among the Yadava lineage rode and advanced. On seeing Pundarikaksha descended on him in the battle, Bhishma was not frightened. He stretched his great bow in the encounter and addressed Govinda without any fear in his heart. O Pundariksha, come, O God of the gods, I bow down before you, O best of the Satvata lineage. Bring me down in this great battle. O God, O unblemished one, slain by you in this battle, I will obtain supreme welfare in this world and in the next world. O Govinda, in the three worlds, I have obtained great honor in the battle today. The mighty armed Partha ran after Keshava and embraced him in his two arms, but despite being grasped by Partha, the lotus-eyed Purushottam Krishna still proceeded with great force, dragging him along. Partha, the destroyer of enemy heroes, now grasped uh, Harikesha's legs with force and managed to stop him at the 10th step. His eyes were full of rage and he was shining like a serpent. Arjuna, the destroyer of enemy heroes, spoke these words of distress to him. O mighty armed one, refrain, you should not do this. O Keshava, you earlier said that you would not fight in this war. O Madhava, the world will say that you have uttered a falsehood. Let the entire burden be on me. I will kill the one who is rigid in his vows, O Madhava. If it is otherwise in this battle, let there be a curse on my truth and my good deeds, O destroyer of enemies. I will do everything so that the end of the force is ensured. Behold, as I wish, I will bring down the invincible one who is great in his vows today, like the full moon at the end of an era. Madhava heard these words of the great soul Falguna. He did not say anything, but in great rage he again ascended onto the chariot. Those two tigers among men were stationed on the chariot. Bhishma, Santanu's son, again showered down arrows like clouds raining down on a mountain. O Father Devbrata took the lives of the warriors like the rays of the sun, absorb energy everything everything after winter has passed, just as the Pandava had shattered the ranks of the Kurus in battle. Your father shattered the ranks of the Pandava soldiers in battle. The soldiers were slain and routed. They lost their enterprise and were bereft of their senses. In that battle, they were incapable of looking at Bhishma, scorching them with his own energy. He was like the midday sun. They were slain by Bhishma as if he was death at the time of the destruction of a yuga. O great king, the Pandavas were afflicted with fear and glanced at him. They could not find a protector like cattle that had sunk into mire. In that battle, they were like weak ants afflicted by a strong person. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, the Maharatha was unassailable. He scorched the kings with his arrows. They were incapable of looking at Bhishma. His arrows scorched like the rays of the sun. while the soldiers of the Pandus were routed. The one with the 1,000 rays began to set. The soldiers were overcome by fatigue. Their hearts were set on withdrawing. Next chapter 103. Sanjay said, while they were still fighting, the sun set. So Sanjay was also present in that Mahabharat war. After war, Sanjay told everything to Dhritarashtra. Terrible twilight set in and the field of battle could no longer be seen. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, King Yudhishthira saw that twilight had set in and that of own soldiers were being slaughtered by Bhishma, or destroyer of enemies. They had discarded their weapons and, surrounded by the enemy, had begun to run away. In that battle, Maratha Bhishma was incited by supreme anger. He saw that the Somakas had been vanquished and that the Maharathas were dispirited. He thought for a short while and gave the instructions for withdrawal. King Yudhishthira instructed that the soldiers should be withdrawn. In a similar way, your soldiers were also withdrawn at the same time. O best of the Kurus, having withdrawn the soldiers, the Maharathas entered their camps. So, 8 day of war was over. Having been wounded in the battle, the Pandavas reflected on their on what should be done. Bhishma in the battle, oppressed by Bhishma, they could not find any peace. In that battle, Bhishma had vanquished the Pandavas together with the Srinjayas, or descendant of the Bharata lineage. He was worshipped by your sons and praised by them. With the delighted Kurus surrounding him in every direction, he entered his camp. It was night, and all the beings lost their senses towards the beginning of that terrible night. That the Pandavas, the Vrishnis, and the invincible Sanjayas sat down to brave a consultation. All those immensely powerful ones thought that the time had come to consult about what would be beneficial for them. Those wise ones anxiously consulted to determine what would be best. O King, King Yudhishthira consulted for a long time. He glanced toward Vasudeva and spoke these words: O Krishna, behold the great soul Bhishma, terrible in his valor. He crushes my soldiers like an elephant amidst a clump of lotuses. We do not even have the enterprise to glance at the great souled one. He is like an expanding fire that is consuming my soldiers. He is like the terrible and great serpent Takshaka, whose venom is virulent. O Krishna, in that battle the powerful Bhishma uses sharp weapons. He grasps his bow in the encounter and releases sharp arrows. It is possible to vanquish an angry Yama, the king of the gods, with the Vajra in his hand, Varuna with his nose, and the Lord of Riches with the club. But if he is enraged, it is impossible to defeat Bhishma in a great battle. O Krishna, it is because of this reason that I am immersed in an ocean of grief. Having confronted Bhishma in the battle, I am suffering from weakness of intelligence. O invincible one, I will go to the forest. It is beneficial that I should go there. O Krishna, I have no desire to fight. Bhishma always kills us. He is like a flaming fire towards which insects are attracted. I will obtain the same result of death by daring to fight with Bhishma. O Varshnaya, despite being valorous for the sake of the kingdom, I am being conveyed towards destruction. My brave brothers are surely afflicted through arrows. It is because of me and because of affection towards their brother, they that were dislodged from the kingdom. O Madhusudana, Krishna was oppressed because of what I had done. I think that being alive has great value, but it is now extremely difficult to remain alive. If I remain alive today, I will spend the remaining part in pursuing supreme dharma. O Keshava, if you show my favors towards me and towards my brothers, tell me what I should do. O Keshava, but this should be without contravening my own dharma. Krishna heard these words and their detailed description. Overcome by compassion, he comforted Yudhishthira and replied, O Dharmaraja's son, O Dharma's son, you should not grieve. You are devoted to the truth. Your brave brothers are invincible and are the destroyer of enemies. Arjuna and Bhimsena are as energetic as Vayu and Agni. Madri's two sons are valorous as the lord of the 30 gods. O Pandava, for the sake of the good relationship that exists between us, employ me to fight with Bhishma. O king, instructed by you, there is nothing I will not do in this great battle while the sons of Dhritarashtra to look on. If Falguna does not desire it, I will change Bhisma. I will challenge Bhisma, the bull among men, in this battle and kill him, O Pandava. If you see that Bhishma's death will ensure that you win the kingdom alone on a chariot, I will slay the aged grandfather of the Kurus today. O king, witness my valor in this battle like that of the great Indra. I will use great weapons and bring him down from his chariot. There is no doubt that someone who is an enemy to the sons of Pandu is my foe too. My welfare is your welfare. All that is mine is yours. Your brother's is my friend, relative, and disciple, O Lord of the earth. For Arjuna's sake, I can slice up and give my own flesh. This tiger among men will also lay down his life for my sake. O Father, this is our understanding that we will protect each other. O Indra among kings, employ me so that I can be your protector. In Upablavya, Partha earlier took an oath before many people. I will slay Gangeya, means Bhishma. I should protect the oath that the intelligent Partha took. If Partha gives me permission, there is no doubt that I should perform this task. Or let Falguna bear this limited burden in battle. Let him kill Bhishma, the destroyer of enemy cities, in battle. If Partha steers himself, there is nothing that he cannot accomplish in battle, even if the 30 gods have raised their arms against him. Together with the Daityas and the Danavas, O Lord of Men, they can be killed by Arjuna in battle. Not to speak of Bhishma. Bhishma, Santanu's immensely valorous son, has now become a perverse and has lost his intelligence. He will not live for long. He no longer understands what his duty is. Yudhishthira replied, O mighty armed one, O Madhava, it is exactly as you have spoken. All of them together are not capable of withstanding your force. O tiger among men, with an immensely strong one like you as my protector, I am always certain of obtaining everything that I desire. O supreme among victorious ones, with Govinda as a protector, I can vanquish the gods together with Indra in battle. Not to speak of Bhishma in this great battle, but I cannot make your words come false for the sake of glorifying my own objective. O Madhava, as you had promised, help us, but without taking part in the fight, O Madhava, Bhishma had come to an agreement with me. For your sake, I will proffer advice, but I will never fight for you, O Lord. I tell you truthfully that I will fight for Duryodhana's cause. O Madhava, he may provide counsel as to how we can obtain the kingdom. Let all of us go to Devbrata to ask him about the means whereby he may be killed. O Madhusudana, together with you, let all of us go and ask him. O Supreme Among Men, together with you, let all of us quickly go to Bhishma. O Vashnaya, if this seems desirable to you, let us go and seek Kaurav's counsel. O Janardana, he will offer us beneficial and truthful advice. O Krishna, in this battle let us do what he asks us to do. The one who is rigid in his vows will give us counsel and victory. We lost our father when we were children, and he read us. O Madhava, this is the aged grandfather whom I wish to kill. He is the father of our beloved father. Same on the livelihood of Kshatriyas. Sanjay said, O great king, on hearing these words, Vashnaya spoke to the descendant of the Kuru lineage, O mighty armed one, I have always liked whatever you have said. Devbrata Bhishma is accomplished. He can burn down with his clans. Let us go to the one who is the son of the one who goes to the ocean to ask about the means of the death. He will certainly speak the truth, especially if he is asked by you. Let us go there to ask the grandfather of the Kurus. O Madhava, let us bow down our heads and go and ask him for counsel. He will offer us counsel about how we can fight with the enemy. O Pandu's elder brother, having thus counseled all the brave Pandavas together with the valiant Vasudeva departed, they discarded their weapons and armor and proceeded to Bhishma's residence. They entered and bowed their heads in obeisance before Bhishma. O great king, O bull among the Bharata lineage, the Pandavas worshipped him. They lowered their heads and shouted Bhishma's protection. The mighty armed Bhishma, the grandfather of the Kurus, told them, O Vashnaya, welcome, O Dhananjaya, welcome, O Dharmaraja's son, O Bhima, O twins, welcome. What is the task that I can accomplish for you now? What will extend your pleasure? Even if it should prove to be extremely difficult, I will do it with all my heart. With affection, Gangeya means Bhishma repeatedly spoke in this way. Yudhishthira, Dharmaraja's son, was miserable in his soul and spoke these words: O one who is learned in Dharma, how will we obtain victory and the kingdom? How can this destruction of objects be stopped? O Lord, tell us this. You yourself tell us the means whereby we can bring about your own death. O King, how will we be able to withstand you in battle? O grandfather of the Kurus, you do not exhibit the slightest bit of weakness. In that battle, your bow is always seen whirling around in a circle. No one can distinguish when you affix an arrow. Aim or stretch your bow, O mighty armed one. We see you stationed on your chariot like the sun, O slayer of enemy heroes. You slaughter men, horses, chariots, and elephants, O bull among the Bharata lineage. Which man is capable of killing you? O supreme among men, you bring down a great shower of arrows. Because of you, my large army is decaying from one day to another. How can we defeat you in battle? How can the kingdom be ours? How can there be peace among my soldiers? O grandfather, tell us this, O Pandu's elder brother. Santanu's son then spoke these words to Pandava, O Konteya, as long as I am alive in battle, your prosperity will never be seen. I tell you this truthfully. After you have vanquished me in battle, your victory over the Kauravas is certain. If you wish to obtain victory in this battle, strike me down quickly, O Partha. You have my permission to happily strike at me. I think it is good for you that you know my nature. After I have been killed, everyone else will be killed. Therefore, do as I am asking you to. Yudhishthira said, tell us the means whereby we may defeat you in battle. When you are enraged in battle, you are like Yama with a staff in his hand. It is possible to defeat the wielder of the Vajra or Varuna or Yama, but you are incapable of being defeated in battle, even by the gods and the Asuras, together with Indra. Bhishma replied, O mighty armed one, O Pandava, what you have said is true. I am incapable of being defeated in battle even by the gods and the Asuras, together with Indra, but this is when I grasp my weapons in battle and grasp my supreme bow, O king. But when I cast aside my weapons, the Marathas can kill me in battle. I do not wish to fight with someone who has cast his weapons aside, someone who has fallen down, someone whose armor and standards have been dislodged, someone who is running away, someone who is pretended, someone who solicits a sanctuary, someone who is a woman, someone who bears the name of a woman, someone who is disabled, someone who is only has one son, someone who does not have a son, and someone who is difficult to look at. O Partha, hear about the vow that I took a long time ago. I will never fight if I see a inauspicious signs on the standard. O king, this son of Drupada is a Maharatha in your army. Shikhandi is a brave and victorious one who always desired to fight, but he was a woman earlier. And friends, Shikhandi was a homosexual, okay, born as a woman. He became a man later. All of you know everything about how this came about in the battle. Let the brave Arjuna place Shikhandi ahead of him. Let the armored one attack me with sharp arrows. I will see an inauspicious sign on the standards, then especially that of someone who was earlier a woman. Even if I have grasped my bow, I will never strike him then. O bull among the Bharatian lineage, let Pandava Dhananjaya then strike me from every side with his arrows. Truly, with the exception of the immensely fortunate Krishna and Pandava Dhananjaya, I do not see anyone in this world who is capable of killing me. Therefore, placing him at the front, let Bibhutsu arrive his utmost to bring me down. Victory will be obtained. O Kaunteya, act in accordance with the words I have spoken. You will then be able to defeat the assembled sons of Dhritarashtra in the battles. Sanjay said, having taken this permission and having shown their respects to the great soul Bhishma, the grandfather of the Kurus, the Parthas then returned to their own camp. Gangya prepared himself for the departure to the next world. Arjuna was tormented by grief and he was overcome with shame. He said, O Madhava, how can I fight with my senior, the aged one of my lineage? He is accomplished in wisdom and intelligence. How can I fight with the grandfather in a battle, O Vasudeva? As a child, I used to play with the great minded one, O Gada's elder brother. I used to sully the great soul one's garments with the dust on my body. When I used to climb onto his lap as a child, he is the father of my father, the great soul Pandu. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, I am not your father, but your father's father. These are the words he used to tell me in my childhood. How can he be killed by me now? I wish that my soldiers are killed. I cannot fight with that great soul one, O Krishna. Which do you think is superior, victory or death? Krishna replied, O Jishnu, earlier you have promised to kill Bhishma in the battle, O Partha. Established in the dharma of Kshatriyas, how can you not kill him now? O Partha, bring him down from his chariot like a tree that has been struck by lightning. Without killing Gangya in battle, victory cannot be obtained. This has been determined by destiny earlier. The king has been obtained by destiny. Bhishma's killer is an earlier Indra. It cannot but be otherwise. O invincible one, Bhishma is like that with a gaping mouth. No one other than you is capable of fighting with him, not even the wielder of the Vajra himself. O mighty armed one, kill Bhishma, listen to these words of mine. This is what the immensely intelligent Brihaspati told Shakra in earlier times. O Shakra, you must kill someone who possesses all the qualities. If he comes as an Asian or if he arrives to kill, O Dhananjaya, this is the eternal dharma in which Kshatriyas have been established. They must fight, protect, and perform sacrifices without any malice. Arjuna replied, O Krishna, it is certain that Shikhandi will be the cause of Bhishma's death. As soon as he sees Panchala, Bhishma will withdraw. Therefore, he will place Shikhandi ahead of all of us. It is my view that this is the means for bringing about Gangeya's downfall. I will restrain the other great archers with my arrows. Shikhandi will fight with Bhishma, the best of warriors. I have heard from the chief of the Kurus that he will not kill Shikhandi. He was born as a maiden earlier and become a man later. Having decided this, the Pandavas, together with Madhava, retired to their own beds. The wool among men were happy. Next chapter 104. Dhritarashtra asked, O Sanjay. So Sanjay was also present in Mahabharat war. After war, Sanjay told everything to Dhritarashtra. O Sanjay, how did Shikhandi fight with Gangeya in that battle? How did Bhishma advance against the Pandavas? Tell me this. Sanjay replied, the morning was clear and it was the time for the sun to rise. Many drums, kettle drums, and tambourines were sounded. Conch shells with the complexion of curds were blown in every direction. The Pandava warriors placed Shikhandi at the forefront and marched out. O great king, they constructed a view that was capable of destroying all enemies. O lord of the earth, Shikhandi was stationed at the forefront of all the soldiers. Bhimsena and Dhananjaya protected his wheels. Draupadi's son and Subhadra's valiant son were behind him. Satyaki and Maharata Chekitana protected them. Dishtidumya was behind them, protected by the Panchalas. O bull among the Bharata lineage, O Lord, King Yudhishthira marched out together with the twins, roaring like lions. Virata was behind him, surrounded by his soldiers. O great king, Drupada advanced behind him. O descendants of the Bharata lineage, the five brothers of Kekeya and the valiant Dishtaketu protected the Pandu soldiers from the rear. The Pandavas arranged the large army of soldiers in the form of this view. They advanced in the battle ready to give up their lives. O king, in that fashion, the Kurus placed the immensely strong Bhishma at the forefront of all their soldiers and advanced against the Pandavas. He was protected by your invincible and extremely strong sons, the great archer. Drona was behind them. Together with his Maratha son, Bhagdatta was behind him, surrounded by a large army of elephants. Kripa and Kritavarma followed Bhagdatta. Shudakshina, the powerful king of Cambodia, was behind them, as were Jayatsena from Magadha, Subala, and uh, Brihadbala. There were many other great archers and kings with Susharma at the forefront. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, they protected your army's rear from one day to another. Bhishma, Santanu's son, created a different kind of view for the battle. Sometimes it was Asura, sometimes it was Pisacha, sometimes it was Rakshasa. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, the battle between those on your side and those of the enemy commenced. O king, they struck each other and extended Yama's kingdom. The Parthas with Arjuna at their head placed Shikhandi at the forefront. They advanced against Bhishma in the battle and released many kinds of arrows. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, those on your side were oppressed by Bhima's arrows. They were covered in blood and leapt for the next world. Nakula, Sadeva, and Maratha Satyaki advanced against your soldiers and afflicted them with energy. O bull among the Bharata lineage, those on your side were being slain in that battle. They were incapable of resisting the great army of the Pandavas. Your soldiers were slaughtered in every direction, O king. They were oppressed by those Maharathas and were seen to run away in different directions. O bull among the Bharata lineage, those on your side could not find a protector. They were slaughtered by sharp arrows of the Pandavas together with the Sanjayas. Dhritarashtra said, on seeing that the army was thus oppressed by the Parthas, what did the valiant Bhishma do when he became enraged in the battle? O Sanjay, how did the scourger of enemies advance against the Pandavas in battle? O Sanjay, how did he kill the brave Somakas? Tell me this. Sanjay replied, O great king, when the soldiers of your sons were oppressed by the Pandavas and the Sanjayas, I will tell you what the grandfather did. O Pandu's elder brother, the brave Pandavas were delighted. They advanced and began to slaughter your son's army. O Indra among men, there was a destruction of men, elephants, and horses. Bhishma could not tolerate that the enemy was slaying the soldiers in the battle. The great archer attacked the Pandavas, the Panchalas, and the Sanjayas. He was invincible and was prepared to give up his own life, O king. He attacked the five supreme Marathas among the Pandavas. These were the ones who were exerting themselves in the battle, and he checked them with his arrows. He used iron arrows, Vatsadantas, and sharp Anjalikas. He was angry and killed many elephants and horses in that battle. O king, that bull among men brought down charioteers from their chariots, horse riders from the back of horses, assembled foot soldiers, and elephant riders from the back of elephants. He terrified the enemy. In that battle, the Maratha Pandavas quickly attacked Bhishma together, like the wielder of the Vajra assailed by Asuras. He released sharp arrows that were like Chakras Vajra to the touch. He was seen in every direction, having assumed a terrible form. As he fought in the battle, his bow was always seen whirling around in a circular motion like Shakra's giant bow. O Lord of Earth, on witnessing his deeds in that battle, your sons were filled with supreme wonder and honored the grandfather. The Parthas were dispirited at the way your brave father was fighting in the battle. They glanced towards him like the immortals towards Viprachiti. They could not resist the one who was like death with a gaping mouth. On the ninth day of battle, he began to consume Sikhandi's array of chariots with his sharp arrows, like the one with the black trails burns a forest. Shikhandi pierced him between the breasts with three arrows. Bhishma was like an angry and virulent serpent, like the destroyer who had been created by death. Having been thus severely pierced, a glance towards Shikhandi, he was enraged but was unwilling. He smiled and said, "Whether you desire it or not, I will never fight with you. You are still a Shikhandini that the Creator made." On hearing these words, Shikhandi became senseless with anger. In that battle, he licked the corners of the mouth and spoke to Bhishma, "O mighty armed one, I know you to be the destroyer of the Kshatriyas. I have heard about your battle with Jamadagni's son." So Shikhandi was a homosexual. Okay, she born as a woman. "I have also heard many things about your divine powers. Knowing of your prowess, I wish to fight with you today, O supreme among men. I wish to do what is pleasant for the Pandavas and for my own self, O supreme among men. I wish to fight against you in the battle today. It is certain that I will kill you. I am swearing this truthfully in front of you, having heard these words of mine. Do what you must do, whether you wish to strike me or whether you do not. You will not escape with your life, O Bhishma, O victorious one. Take a final look at this world, O king." Having said this, he pierced Bhishma with five straight-tipped arrows, having already wounded him with the arrows of his words. On hearing these words, Sabyasachi, the scourger of enemies, thought that the bedtime had come and incited Shikhandi. Thought that the time had come and incited Shikhandi. "I will now fight behind you and destroy the enemy with my arrows." Ignited with rage, attacked Bhishma, uh, whose valor is terrible. The immensely strong one will not be able to cause you any pain in the battle, O brave one, O mighty armed one. Therefore attacked Bhishma, O venerable one. If you return without killing Bhishma in battle, the worlds will look at you and at me with disrespect. O brave one, exert yourself in this great battle so that we are not ridiculed. Make endeavors in the battle and repulse the grandfather Drona, Drona's son, Kripa, Suyodhana, Chitrasena, Bikarna, Sandhyabhya, Jayadratha, Binda and Anubinda from Avanti, Shudakshina from Cambodia, the brave Bhagdatta and Maharata from Magadha, Somdatta's son, the Rakshasa, who is Rishishinga's son, Alambus, and is brave in battle, the king of Trigartha, and all the other Maharathas. I will restrain them in battle, like the storeline beholds back the dwelling place of Makaras. I will hold back in battle all the Kurus together with their soldiers. You strip against the grandfather. Next chapter 105. Dhritarashtra asked, How did Panchala Shikhandi attack the grandfather Gangeya, Bhishma, when he was enraged in battle? He was dharma in his soul and rigid in his vows when Shikhandi raised his weapons. Who protected the army of the Pandavas? Those Maharathas desired victory and acted swiftly when it was the time to act fast. How did the immensely glorious Bhishma, Santanu's son, fight on the 10th day with the Pandavas and the Sanjayas? I cannot tolerate the thought of Bhishma being overthrown by Shikhandi in battle. Was his chariot shattered? Did his bow break into fragments? Sanjay said, O bull among the Bharata lineage, when he fought in the battle, Bhishma's bow was not shattered, nor was his chariot broken. He used straight tufted arrows to kill the enemies. In that encounter, O king, many hundred and thousand Maharathas on your side and large number of chariots, elephants, and horses with excellent harness advanced to do battle, placing the grandfather at the forefront. O Kaurava, the victorious one, struck in his bow. Bhishma continuously slaughtered the soldiers of the Parthas. The great archer fought and killed the enemy with his arrows. All the Panchalas, together with the Pandavas, could not resist him. When the 10th day arrived, he scorched the army of the enemy. He released sharp arrows in hundreds and thousands. O Pandu's elder brother, the Pandavas were incapable of defeating Bhishma, the great archer in battle. He was like Yama with a nose in his hand. O great king, Sabyasachi, the scourger of enemies and the one who was never defeated, arrived at the spot, causing terror among all the Rathas. He roared like a lion. He repeatedly drew his bow and released a shower of arrows. Partha roamed around on the field of battle like that. O bull among the Bharata lineage, those on your side were frightened at the sound, O king. They fled in great fear like deer because of a lion. On witnessing that Partha was victorious and that your soldiers were oppressed by him, Duryodhana was greatly tormented and spoke to Bhishma, O father, your sons of Pandu is born by white horses and has Krishna as a charioteer. He is scorching all those on my side like the one with the break trail in a forest. O Gangeya, behold the soldiers and running away in every direction. O foremost among warriors, they were being slaughtered and driven away by Pandava in this battle. They are like a herd of cattle being driven by a herdsman in the forest. O scorcher of enemies, my soldiers are being driven away. They are being shattered by Dhananjaya's arrows. They are running away here and there. It is like a herdman driven away a herd of cattle in the forest, scorcher of enemies. My soldiers are being driven away in that fashion. They are being shattered through Dhananjaya's arrows and are fleeing in different directions. The invincible Bhima is driven away by soldiers. Satyaki, Chekitana, the Pandavas who are Madri's sons, and the valiant Abhimanyu are scorching my army. The brave Dishtidumya and Rakshas Ghatotkacha, immensely strong, are impetuously driven away my soldiers. In every way, my soldiers are being slaughtered by those immensely strong ones. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, in making them remain in battle, I do not see any successor other than you, tiger among men, and like the gods in your valor. You are my refuge in this operation. You should swiftly counter them, O great king. Thus addressed your father Devbrata through for some time and made up his mind. Santanu's son consoled your son. O Duryodhana, O Lord of the earth, be patient and listen to what I have to say to you. O immensely strong one, in earlier times I had taken a plague that I would kill 10,000 great souled Kshatriyas every day and would then return from the battle, O bull among the Bharata lineage. For the sake of your welfare, I have carried out the pledge I made to you. I will perform an even greater task in this great battle today. I will sleep after being slain, or I will kill the Pandavas today. O tiger among men, I will today free myself from the great debt I owe you. O king, you offered me food as my master. I will be slain at the forefront of the army. Having spoken these words, the best of the Bharata lineage scattered arrows among the Kshatriyas. The invincible one attacked the Pandava army. O bull among the Bharata lineage, Gangeya stationed himself in the midst of the army like an angry and virulent serpent, and the Pandavas surrounded him. On the 10th day, he exhibited his strength. O king, the descendant of the Kuru lineage killed hundreds and thousands. He sucked out the angry from the best of the Panchalas and the immensely strong princes, like the sun sucking up water with its rays. O great king, the spirited one killed 10,000 elephants and then killed 10,000 horses with their riders. The best of men killed 200,000 foot soldiers. Bhishma was dazzling in that battle like a flame without smoke. No one among the Pandavas were capable of looking at him. He was like the scorching sun when it is on its northern part, but through they were oppressed. The Pandavas, great archers, together with the Maratha Srinjayas, attacked and sought to kill Bhishma. There were many who fought with Bhishma. Santanu's son, then the mighty armed one, looked like a mountain that was occupied by clouds. Your sons surrounded Gangeya from every direction together with a large army, and the battle raged on. Next chapter 106. Sanjay said, O king, Arjuna then witnessed Bhishma's valor in battle. He told Shikhandi, advanced towards the grandfather, you should not exhibit the slightest fear of Bhishma today. I will bring down the supreme of Rathas with sharp arrows, O bull among the Bharata lineage. Having been thus addressed by Partha, and having heard what Partha had said, Shikhandi attacked Gangeya. Shikhandi attacked Bhishma. O king, having heard what Partha had said, Dishtidumya and the Mahabharata, who was Subhadra's son, cheerfully attacked Bhishma. The aged Virata and Drupada and the armored Kunti Bhoja attacked Bhishma, while your son looked on, O Lord of Earth. Nakul Sahadeva, the valorous Dharmaraja, and all the other soldiers attacked Gangeya. Bhishma, having heard what Partha had said, the Maharathas on your side united and encountered attack according to their capacity and according to their endeavor. Listen, I will describe it. O great king, Chitrasena attacked Chekitana, who was advancing in the battle against Bhishma like a young tiger attacked a bull. O great king, in the endeavor, Dishtidumya had swiftly approached Bhishma and Kritavarma repulsed him. Bhimsena was enraged and wished to kill Bhishma. O great king, Somadatta's son quickly countered him. The brave Nakula released many arrows wishing to ensure that Bhishma remained alive. Vikarna repulsed this. Sadeva was advancing towards Bhishma's chariot in the battle. Sharadvata Kripa angrily countered him. On seeing that Bhimsena's immensely strong son, the Rakshasa who performed cruel deeds, wished to kill Bhishma. Durmukha powerfully attacked him in the encounter. Uh, Rishashinga's son, Alambush demon, angrily repulsed Shatyaki. O great king, Abhimanyu was advancing towards Bhishma's chariot. O great king, Sudakshina of Kamboja repulsed him. The aged Virata and Drupada, the destroyer of enemies, had united. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, Ashwatthama was enraged and repulsed them. The eldest of Pandu's sons wished to kill Bhishma. Bharadwaja's son made efforts in the battle to counter Dharma's son. Arjuna was hastening in the battle with Shikhandi at the forefront, O great king. He was approaching Bhisma, scorching the 10 directions. Dushasana, the great archer, countered him in the battle. There were other Pandava Marathas who were advancing towards Bhishma in the battle. Other warriors on your side countered their advance. Dishtidumya forcefully advanced against the immensely strong Bhishma alone. He repeatedly addressed the soldiers. This Arjuna, the descendant of the Kuru lineage, is advancing against Bhishma in battle. Advance. Do not be frightened. Bhishma will not be able to touch you. When Arjuna fights in a battle, even Vasava loses interest, not to speak of Bhishma. The brave one has lost his spirits in the battle. He has but a short time to live. On hearing the words of their commander, the Pandava Marathas cheerfully advanced towards Gangeya's chariot. O bull among men, on your side cheerfully resist them as they advanced in that battle like a powerful storm. O great king, Maharatha Dushasana abandoned his fear. He wished to ensure that Bhishma remained alive and attacked Dhananjaya. In that encounter, the brave Pandavas advanced towards Gangeya's chariot and towards your Maratha sons, O Lord of the earth. We witnessed a wonderful and colorful incident. Having reached Dusasana's chariot, Partha was checked. He was restrained like the shoreline checks the turbulent and great ocean. The angry Pandava was repulsed by your son, O descendant of the Bharata lineage. Both of them were the best of Rathas and were invincible, O descendant of the Bharata lineage. Both of them were radiant and were as handsome as the moon or the sun. Both of them were overcome with anger and wished to kill each other. They clashed in that great battle like Maya and Shakra in earlier times, O great king. Dushasana wounded Pandava with 3 arrows and Vasudeva with 20. On seeing that Varshaneya was wounded, Arjuna was overcome with rage. He pierced Dushasana with 100 iron arrows. In the encounter, they penetrated his armor and drank his blood. O best of the Bharata lineage, Dushasana was angered at this. He pierced Partha in the forehead with 5 straight-tipped arrows. O great king, with those arrows of his forehead, the supreme of Pandavas was radiant, like Meru's lofty peaks, preached by your archer's son in the battle. Partha, the great archer, looked like a blossoming Kimshuka tree. Thus wounded Pandava became angry, extremely angry. He attacked Dushasana, like Rahu attacking the moon on the night of the new moon or full moon. O Lord of the earth, your son was afflicted by the powerful one. In the battle, he pierced Partha with arrows that were sharpened on stone and tufted with the feathers of herons. The spirited and valorous Partha slashed down his bow. After this, he struck Yosan with 9 arrows. Stationing himself in front of Bhishma, he grasped another bow and shot 25 arrows at Arjuna's chest and arms. O great king, at this Pandava, the destroyer of enemies, became angry. He released many arrows that were like Yamastab, but though they were released by Partha, your son slashed them down before they could reach him. It was wonderful. Your son pierced Partha with sharp arrows. Partha became wrathful in that battle and fixed arrows to his bow. They were gold tipped and sharpened on stone, and he released them in the encounter. O great king, this penetrated the great soul one's body like swans entering a pond. O great king, O descendant of the Bharat lineage, your son was afflicted by the great soul Pandava. He avoided Partha in the battle and swiftly found refuge in Bhishma's chariot. He seemed to be submerged in fathomless waters, and Bhishma was like an island. O Lord of the earth, your son was brave and violent. When he regained consciousness, he again restrained Partha with extremely sharp arrows like Vitra against Purandara. Through he is praised by the immensely valorous one, Arjuna was not distressed. Next chapter 107. Sanjay said the armored Satyaki raised his weapons against Bhishma in the battle. The great archer who was Rishishinga's son, demon Alambusha, repulsed him in the encounter. O king, O descendant of the Bharata lineage, Madhava was enraged in the battle and, as if he was smiling, pierced the Rakshasa with 9 arrows. O king, O Indra among kings, the enraged Rakshasa wounded Madhava, the bull among the Sini lineage, with sharp arrows. Madhava, Sinis descended, and the destroyer of enemy heroes, became wrathful in the battle and released a shower of arrows towards the Rakshasa. The Rakshasa roared like a lion and pierced Satyaki, the mighty armed one, for whom truth was his valor. With sharp arrows in the battle, Madhava was severely wounded by the Rakshasa. But the spirited one, restored to his patience, he laughed at and roared in the encounter. The angry Bhagdatta wounded Madhava with sharp arrows like a mighty elephant being goaded. Sinis descended supreme among Rathas gave up the encounter with the Rakshasa. He released straight-tipped arrows towards Parjotisa. The king of Parjotisa, skilled in the use of his hands, grasped a sharp and broad-headed arrow and sliced down Madhava's giant bow. The destroyer of enemy heroes grasped another one that was even more powerful. In the encounter, he angrily pierced Bhagdatta with sharp arrows. The great archer was praised and repeatedly licked the corners of his mouth. He grasped a firm and iron javelin that was decorated with gold and lapis lazuli. It was as terrible as Yama's staff, and he hurled this towards Satyaki. It was hurled through the force of his arms. O king, on seeing it suddenly descended in the battle, Satyaki separated it into three fragments with his arrows. It fell down on the ground like a giant meteor that has lost his brilliance. O Lord of the earth, on seeing that the javelin had been destroyed, your son surrounded Madhava with a large number of chariots. On seeing that Maharatha Varsneya had been surrounded, Duryodhana was extremely happy and spoke to all his brothers. O Kauravas, act so that the warrior Satyaki may not escape with his life. Go there with a large number of chariots. If he is killed, I think that the great army of the Pandavas will also be slain. The Maharathas accepted his words and agreed to do this. With Bhishma at the forefront, they began to fight with Sinis descended. Abhimanyu was advancing against Bhishma in the battle. The powerful king of Cambodia restrained him in the encounter. Arjuna's son preached the king with straight-tipped arrows. O king, he again preached the king with 64 arrows, wishing to see the Bhishma remained alive. In that encounter, Sudakshina preached Krishna's son with 9 arrows and his charioteer with 9. Krishna's son means Arjuna's son. There is 4 Krishna in Mahabharata. First Arjun Krishna, second Balram's younger brother, third Krishna Dvaipayana means Ved Vyas, fourth Krishna Draupadi. When those two glorious ones clashed, the encounter was wonderful and great. Shikhandi, the scourger of enemies, attacked Gangeya means Bhishma, Virata and Drupada. The aged Maharathas rushed forward to battle Bhishma, resisting the large army. Ashwatthama, supreme among Rathas, became angry and repulsed them. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, a battle commenced between them, O king. O scourger of enemies, Virata used 10 broad-headed arrows to strike Drona's son, the great archer who was the ornament of any battle. Drupada also used 3 sharp arrows to pierce him. The preceptor's son stationed himself in front of Bhishma as the aged Virata and Drupada advanced toward Bhishma. Ashwatthama preached them with 10 arrows. We witnessed the extraordinary and great conduct of those aged ones. In the battle, they repulsed the terrible arrows shot by Drona's son. Sharadvata Kripa rushed against the advancing Sahadeva like an angry elephant attacks another elephant in the forest. O king, in that battle Maharata Kripa quickly struck Madri's son with 70 arrows decorated in gold, but Madri's son used his arrows to slice down his bow into 2. Once the bow had been severed, he pierced him with 9 arrows. Wishing to ensure that Bhishma remained alive, he grasped another bow that was capable of bearing a great burden. In anger but cheerfully, he struck Madri's son in that battle with 10 sharp arrows. O king, desiring to kill Bhishma, Pandava was angry and struck back the intolerant one. The battle that raged was variable and fearful. Wishing to ensure that Bhishma remained alive, Vikarna, the scourger of enemies, angrily preached Nakula in that battle. With 60 arrows, Nakula was severely wounded by yours archer's son, but he preached Vikarna back with 77 arrows that had been sharpened on stone. For the sake of Bhishma, those scourger of enemies and tiger among men bravely fought against each other like 2 bulls fighting in a pen. Ghatotkacha was engaged in fighting, slaying your soldiers. For Bhishma's sake, your valiant son Durmukha confronted him in battle. O king, but Hidimba's son was enraged. He struck Durmukha, the scourger of enemies, in the chest of 90 sharp arrows. The brave Durmukha used 60 arrows and were crafted well at the tip of Bhimsena's son, and in the forefront of battle rode in great delight, wishing to kill Bhishma. Drishtidumna advanced in the battle, but wishing to ensure that Bhishma remained alive, Hardikeya countered him. Varshnaya struck the brave Parshata with 5 iron arrows and again quickly struck him between the breasts with 50 arrows. O king, Parshata struck Hardikeya with 9 sharp arrows that were decorated with the feathers of herons. For Bhishma's sake, they severely confronted each other in that great battle. They encountered each other like Vritra and the great Indra. The immensely strong Bhimsena advanced against Bhishma. In that battle, Somdatta's son used an extremely sharp and gold-tipped iron arrow to strike Bhima between the breasts. O supreme among king, with the stuck to his chest, the powerful Bhimsena looked like Roncha in earlier times, struck by Skandus dueling, they angrily attacked each other in that battle and repeatedly released arrows that were like the sun and had been polished by artisans. Wishing to kill Bhishma, Bhima fought with the Mahabharata, who was Somdatta's son, wishing to ensure Bhishma's victory. Somdatta's son fought with Pandava. They performed tasks and outperformed each other in that battle. O great king, surrounded by a large army, Yudhishthira advanced toward Bhishma and was countered by Bharadwaja's son. The roar of Drona's chariot was like the sound of the clouds. O king, O venerable one, on hearing it, the Prabhadarkas trembled. O king, in that battle, the great army of Pandu's son was checked by Drona and could not move a single step. O lord of men, Chekitana was enraged in the battle and advanced towards Bhishma, but your son Chitrasena repulsed the one who was angry in form. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, for Bhishma's sake, the brave Maratha Chitrasena fought against Chekitana to his utmost capacity. Chekitana also fought against Chitrasena, and the battle between the valiant ones was extraordinary. Arjuna was restrained in many different kinds of ways, but he repulsed your son and crushed his soldiers. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, Dushasana resisted Partha to his utmost capacity. Having determined that Bhishma could not be killed, the soldiers of your son were slaughtered in the battle. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, they were agitated there by the best of the Rathas. Next chapter 108. Sanjay said the brave and great archer was like a crazy elephant in his valor. He grasped a giant bow that was capable of restraining a crazy elephant. He brandished the best of bows and drove away the Maharathas. The Maharatha slaughtered the army of the Pandavas. The valiant one was skilled in reading portents and glanced in every direction. Having tormented the soldiers, Drona addressed his son. O son, this is the day when Maharatha Partha will try his utmost to slay Bhishma in battle. My arrows are raising up and my bow is outstretched. But when I try to fix my weapon, they are falling off. My mind is without cheer. The peaceful directions have turned terrible, and birds and animals are wandering around. Inferior vultures are whooping down towards the army of the Bharatas. The sun has lost its splendor, and all the directions have turned red. The earth seems to be suffering, and the mounds seem to have been destroyed. Herons, vultures, and cranes are repeatedly shrieking. Jackals are howling in inauspicious tones, and this signifies a great calamity. Giant meteors are falling down from the center of the sun's disk. The headless torso of Parigha is stationed, covering the sun. The disk of the sun and the moon have become terrible. They signify a terrible danger, partitioning to the mangling of the bodies of kings. In the temples of the Indra among the Kauravas, the gods are trembling, laughing, dancing, and weeping. The planets are circling inauspiciously, keeping the moon to the left. O illustrious one, the moon is rising with its crescent inverted. The bodies of the kings seem to be destroyed. Though they are armored, the soldiers of the sons of Dhritarashtra are no longer radiant. A great sound has arisen amidst both the armies because of Panchajanya's roar and Gandiva's sound. It is certain that Bhivutsu will use supreme weapons in this battle. He will avoid all the others in the encounter and advance towards the grandfather. The pores in my body are constructing. The mind is weakening, O mighty armed one. I am thinking about the encounter between Bhishma and Arjuna. Partha is conversant with disease. He will place the evil minded Panchala at the forefront of the battle and advance to fight with Bhishma. Bhishma had earlier said that he would not kill Shikhandi. The creator made him a woman and he later became a man. Through destiny, Yajnasena's Mahabharata son bears a inauspicious mark on his standard. The son of the one who goes to the ocean will not strike someone who bears an inauspicious mark on his standard. Having thought of all these things, my mind is severely distressed in the battle today. Partha will attack the aged one of the Kuru lineage, Yudhishthira's anger. The encounter between Bhishma and Arjuna and the rage of my weapons in battle certainly portend ill for all subjects. Pandava is spirited, powerful, and brave. He is skilled in the use of weapons and firm in his valor. He can shoot from a great distance and can strike powerfully. He is skilled in understanding the science. He is invincible in battle even by the gods. With Vashava, he is strong and intelligent. He was conqueror in exhaustion. He is supreme among warriors. Pandava possesses terrible weapons and is always victorious in battle. Avoid his path and go to the spot where the one who is rigid in his bows is stationed. O mighty armed one, behold the visage of what is about to transpire. The armors of the brave ones are decorated with gold. They are expensive and beautiful. They will be shattered with straight-tipped arrows. The top of the standards, the javelins, and the bows will be fragmented. There are polished and sharp spears and lances blazing in gold. There are pennants on elephants, and all this will be destroyed by the angry Kriti, means Arjun. O son, this is not the time when dependents should seek to protect their lives. Go, placing heaven at the forefront. The fame and victory, the whirlpool of horses, elephants, and chariots is extremely terrible and is difficult to cross. The one with the ape on his banner is crossing the river of battle on his chariot. Regard for Brahmanas, self-control, generosity, austerities, and greatness in conduct. This can be seen in the king. Dhananjaya is his brother. Bhimsena is powerful, and so are the Pandavas, who are Madri's son. Varsaneya Vasudeva is stationed at their protector. The evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra are overcome by anger. While he has scorched his body through austerities, the Bharatas have been scorched through anger. Partha can be seen with Vasudeva as his refuge. He is shattering all the soldiers of the sons of Dhritarashtra in every direction. Kriti can be seen to be agitating the soldiers like a giant whale agitating large fish at the mouth of a river. Sounds of lamentation and woe can be heard at the head of the army. Go and confront the son of Panchala. I will go and confront Yudhishthira. The center of the infinitely energetic king's view is difficult to penetrate. It is like the inferior of the ocean, and Athirathas are stationed in every direction. Satyaki, Abhimanyu, Dishtidumya, Brikodera, and the twins, Lord among men, are protecting the king. He is like Upendra and is dark. He is as tall as giant Sala tree. He is advancing amidst The soldiers, like a second Falguna, take up your supreme weapons and grasp your giant bow, advance against King Parshata and fight with Brikodara, who does not wish that his beloved son may live for an eternal period. However, placing the Dharma and Kshatriya at the forefront, I am employing you in this task. In this battle, Bhishma is scorching the great army ocean. In battle, he is the equal of Yama and Varuna. Next chapter 109. Sanjay said, Bhagdatta Kripa Shala Satvata Kritavarma Vinda and Anubinda from Avanti, Sandhava, Jayadratha, Chitrasena, Vikarna, and the youthful Durmushana, these 10 warriors from your side fought against Bhimsena. They were accompanied by a large army that had come from many countries. Many countries. O king, in the battle over Bhishma, they sought great fame. Shalya struck Bhimsena with 9 arrows, Kritavarma with 3 arrows, and Kripa with 9 arrows. O venerable one, Chitrasena, Vikarna, and Bhagdatta struck Bhimsena with 10 broad-headed arrows each. Sendhava struck him with 3 arrows in the joints of his soldiers. Vinda and Anubinda from Avanti struck him with 5 arrows each. Durmashana struck Pandava with 20 sharp arrows. O great king, the illustrious one, struck all the Marathas from the side of the sons of Dhritarashtra, brave ones in all the world separately. The immensely strong Bhimsena praised them with many arrows. He praised Salya with 50 and Kritavarma with 8. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, he separated Kripa's bow. He served Kripa's bow with an arrow fixed to it from the middle. After severing the bow, he pierced him with 5 arrows. He pierced Binda and Anubinda with 3 arrows each, Durmushana with 20 and Chitrasena with 5. Bhima pierced Vikarna with 10 arrows and Jayadratha with 5. He again struck Sendhabha with 3 arrows and roared in delight. Gautama, supreme among Rathas, grasped another bow and angrily pierced Bhima with 10 sharp arrows. He was pierced by those many arrows like a giant elephant that has been goaded. The mighty, armed and powerful Bhimsena became angry. In that battle, he wounded Gautama with many arrows as dazzling as Yama at the end of an era. He pierced Sandebya's horses and his charioteer with 3 arrows and sent them to the land of the dead. With his horses slain, the Maratha quickly jumped down from his chariot. In that battle, he released many sharp arrows towards Bhimsena, O descendant of the Bharata lineage, O best of the Bharata lineage. But Bhima used a broad-headed arrow to sever the bow of the great soul Sandhya into 2. From the middle, O king, with his bow severed, bereft of a chariot, and with his horses and chariot slain, he quickly climbed onto Chitrasena's chariot. In the battle there, Pandava performed an extraordinary deed. The Maratha pierced all those Marathas with his arrows and repulsed them. While all the world looked on, he deprived Sandhyabhya of his chariot. Salya could not tolerate Bhimsena's valor. He afflicted sharp arrows that had been polished by an artisan. Asking Bhima to wait, he pierced him with 70 arrows, O venerable one. In that battle, for Salya's sake, Kripa, Kritavarma, Bhagdatta, Binda, and Anubinda from Avanti, Chitrasena, Durmashana, Vikarna, and the valiant king of Sindhu, scorcher of enemies, quickly pierced Bhima. He pierced each of them back with 5 arrows. He pierced Salya and with 70 arrows and yet again with 10. Salya pierced him with 9 arrows and yet again with 5. He then used a broad-headed arrow to severely strike his chariot in his inner organs. On seeing that Vishoka had been wounded, the powerful Bhimsena struck the king of Madra in the arms and the chest with 3 arrows. He pierced each of the other great archers with 3 arrows each. Having wounded them in that battle, he roared like a lion. Pandava was unassailable in battle, but the great archers made great efforts without any hesitation. Each of them severely wounded him in the inner organs with 3 arrows each. But despite being priest Bhimsena, the great archer, was not distressed. He was like a mountain on which showers of rain were pouring down from the clouds. The immensely illustrious one severely priest Shalya with 9 arrows. O king, he firmly priest Parjotisa with 100 arrows. Using an extremely sharp shupra and displaying the dexterity of his hand, he severed a great sword Satvata bow with an arrow fixed to it. O scorcher of enemies, Kritavarma grasped another bow and struck Brikodara in the midst of his forehead with an iron arrow. In that encounter, Bhima priest Shalya with 9 iron arrows, Bhagdatta with 3, and Kritavarma with 8. He priest Gautama and the other Rathas with 2 arrows each, O king. In that encounter, he priest him back with sharp arrows. He was thus afflicted in every direction by those Maharathas, but he disregarded them like straw and roamed around without any pain. Those best of Rathas were not distracted and released hundreds and thousands of sharp arrows towards Bhima. The brave Maratha Bhagdatta hurled an immensely forceful javelin in the battle. It was extremely expensive and possessed a golden handle. The strong-armed king Sendhabya hurled a spear and a lance. O king, in that encounter Kripa used a sadagni and Shalya an arrow. The other great archers released 5 energetic arrows each in Bhimsena's direction, but the sons of the wine god used a shurapra to slice down the spear. He severed the lance with 3 arrows as if it were the stalk of a sesamum plant. He shattered the Shatagni with 9 arrows that were tipped with the feathers of herons. The immensely strong and slashed down the arrows shot by the king of Madra and separated by javelins that had been suddenly and forcefully hurled by Bhagdatta in the battle. As for the other terrible arrows, he used straight-tipped arrows to strike them down. Bhimsena was proud in battle and struck each of them with 3 arrows. Each of those great archers were wounded with 3 arrows. In that great battle, Dhananjaya arrived there. He arrived on his own chariot and beheld Maratha Bhima striking the enemy warriors in the battle with his arrows, O bull among men. On seeing the two great soul Pandava united, all those on Yo's side gave up all hope of victory. In the battle, Arjuna advanced to fight with Mahabharat Bhishma. Wishing to kill Bhishma, he placed Shikhandi at the forefront, or descendant of the Bharata lineage, O king. Those 10 warriors on your side had been fighting in the battle with Bhima. On seeing them stationed there and wishing to do that which would bring pleasure to Bhima, Vibhutsu attacked them. King Duryodhana incited Shushurma for the death of both Arjuna and Bhimsena. O Shushurma, go swiftly, surrounded by your large army, vanquish the son of Pandu, Dhananjaya and Brikodara. On hearing this instruction, Trigarta, the lord of Parshata, attacked the archers Bhima and Arjuna in the battle. He surrounded them with many thousands of chariots in every direction. A battle commenced between Arjuna and the enemy. Next chapter 110. Sanjay said, in the battle, Mahatma Arjuna exerted himself against Shalya. In the encounter, he sworded him with straight-tipped arrows. He pierced Susarma and Kripa with 3 arrows each. O Indra among king, in the battle he wounded Pajyotisa, Sandhabya, Jayadratha, Chitrasena, Vikarna, Kritavarma, Durmushana and the 2 Maharathas from Avanti with 3 arrows each. These were swift and were tipped with the feathers of herons. and peacocks. In the battle, the Atiratha oppressed your army with arrows, or descendant of the Bharata lineage. In the encounter, Jayadratha preached Partha with arrows, and while stationed on Chitrasena's chariot, swiftly preached Bhima. In that battle, Shalya and Kripa preached the mighty armed Jishnu, supreme among Rathas, with many arrows that struck at the inner organs. O Lord of the Earth, O Venerable One, in that encounter your sons Chitrasena and the others struck each other, Arjuna and Bhimsena, with 5 sharp arrows. But those foremost of Rathas, the Kaunteyas, bull among the Bharata lineage, continued to oppress the large army of the Trigarthas in the encounter. In the battle, Susharma preached Partha with many sharp arrows, the powerful, and roared, and the sound echoed in the sky. Other brave Rathas preached Bhimsena and Dhananjaya with sharp and swift arrows that were tipped with gold. In the midst of those Rathas, the Kaunteyas, supreme among Rathas, looked beautiful as they seemed to be sporting and roamed around in their chariots. They were like powerful lions amidst a herd of cattle. They shattered the bows and arrows of many brave ones in the battle. They brought down the heads of hundreds of brave kings. They shattered many chariots and killed hundreds of heroes' horses. In the great battle, they brought down elephants' riders from their elephants. O king, many charioteers and riders were seen to be void of their lives. O king, they were immobile in every direction. Elephants were slain, foot soldiers and horses there lost their lives. The earth was strewn with many shattered chariots, many umbrellas and standards were broken and were brought down, O descendant of the Bharata lineage. There were discarded gold and cushions, diadems, armlets, necklace, hides and ranku deer, and discarded headdresses, whisks, and fans. There were severed arms with sandalwood paste smeared on them. The earth was strewn with the thighs and Indras among men. The witnessed Partha's extraordinary valor in the battle. He used his arrows to restrain and strike all the warriors in your army. On seeing that Bhima and Arjuna were united, your son was frightened and quickly rushed towards Gangeya's chariot, Bhishma's chariot, in great fear. Kripa Ashwathama, Sandhyabha Jayadratha, and Binda and Anubinda from Avanti were the ones who did not give up the battle then. In the encounter, Bhima, the great archer, and Maharata Falguna crushed the army of the Kauravas in terrible fashion. In the encounter, tens of thousands and millions of arrows were quickly showered down on Dhananjaya's chariot. The Maharata repulsed that net of arrows. In the encounter, Partha began to second them to the land of the dead. Maharata Shalya became enraged in that battle. As if playing, he struck Jishnu in the chest with a straight-lofted and broad-headed arrow. Partha used 5 arrows to saber to bow from his hand. He then used other sharp arrows to severely wounded him in his inner organs. In the battle, O Lord of Madra grasped another bow that was capable of bearing a heavy burden. O great king, he angrily wounded Jishnu and 3 arrows to Vasudeva with 5. He struck Bhimsena in the chest and the arms with 9. O great king, Drona and the Maratha from Magadha was instructed by Duryodhana and came to the spot where Partha and Pandava Bhimsena were. O great king, the Maratha were slaying the great army of the Kauravas. O bull among the Bharata lineage, in the encounter the young Jayasena preached Bhima, who preached terrible weapons with 8 sharp arrows. Bhima preached him back with 10 arrows and again with 7. With a broad-headed arrows, he brought down his charioteer from the seat of the chariot. The horses were no longer controlled and fled in different directions, dragging away the king of Magadha, while all the soldiers looked on. Detecting a witness, Drona preached Bhimsena with 65 extremely sharp iron arrows. that had been serpented on stone. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, Bhima prided himself in battle. In that encounter, he preached his preceptor, who was like his father, with 9 broad-headed arrows, and followed it up with another 60. Arjuna preached Susarma with many iron arrows and scattered his soldiers like the wind dispersing a mass of clouds. Bhishma, the king, Shovala and Brihadbala angrily attacked Bhimsena and Dhananjaya. The brave Pandavas and Parshada Drishtidumya attacked Bhishma, who was advancing in the battle like that with a gaping mouth. Shikhandi approached the grandfather of the Bharatas. He was cheerful and had abandoned fear. He attacked the one who was rigid in his vows. The Parthas, headed by Yudhishthira, placed Shikhandi at the forefront. Together with the Sanjayas, they fought against Bhishma in that battle. All those on your side placed the one who was rigid in his vows and the forefront. They fought against the Parthas in that battle with Shikhandi at the forefront for the sake of victory over Bhishma. The battle that commenced there among the Kauravas was terrible. O Lord of the earth, O son of Pandu wished to triumph over Bhishma, and those on your side wished Bhishma's victory in the battle. It was like gambling with the dice, and victory or defeat became a stake. O great king, Drishtidumya instituted all the soldiers, O supreme among men, attacked Gangeya, means Bhishma. Do not be scared. On hearing these words of the commander, the army of the Pandavas quickly advanced against Bhishma. In that great battle, they were ready to give up their lives. O great king, Bhishma, best of the Rathas, resisted that army as it descended on him like the shoreline against the great ocean. Next chapter 111. Dhritarashtra asked, O Sanjay. So Sanjay was also present in that Mahabharat war. Afterwards, Sanjay told everything to Dhritarashtra. Okay. Dhritarashtra asked, O Sanjay, how did the immensely valorous Bhishma, Santanu's son, fight on the 10th day of the battle against the Pandavas and the Sanjayas? How did the Kurus repulse the Pandavas in the battle? Tell me about the great battle fought by Bhishma, the ornament of all battles. Sanjay replied, O descendant of the Bharata lineage, I will describe to you the battle between the Kurus and the Pandavas, and the detailed account of that encounter. Listen. Using his supreme weapons from one day to another, Kiriti, means Arjuna, killed the angry charioteers on your side and sent them to the next world. The victorious Kaurava, Bhishma, also stuck to his plague and always created a great destruction among the army of the Parthas. On seeing Bhishma fight amidst the Mahabharata Kurus and Arjuna with the Panchalas, people were uncertain. On the 10th day, Bhishma and Arjuna encountered each other. There was extremely dreadful carnage. O king, Bhishma, Santanu's son, and scourger of enemies, killed in supreme weapons, slaughtered many tens of thousands of warriors. O king, there were many whose families, names, and lineage were not known. All of them refused to retreat, and the brave ones were slain by Bhishma's weapons, having approached the army of the Pandavas for 10 days. The scourger of enemies, with dharma in his soul, gave up all desire to remain alive. He desired a quick death and stationed himself at the forefront of the battle. I will no longer kill the best of men in the forefront of the battle. O great king, having thought in the way, Devrata, your mighty armed father, addressed these words to the Pandava who was near him. O Yudhishthira, O immensely wise one, O one who is knowledgeable in all the secret texts, O son, listen to my words. They are about attaining dharma and heaven. O son, O descendant of the Bharata lineage, I am extremely disgusted with this body of mine. I have spent a lot of lot of time in slaying a large number of beings in battle. Therefore, place Partha at the forefront with the Panchalas and the Sanjayas. If you wish to do that which brings me pleasure, make endeavor to kill me. Knowing that this was his command, Pandava, who knew about the truth, made effort to fight against Bhishma in the battle, together with the Sanjayas. O king, on hearing Bhishma's words, Drishtidumya and Pandava Yudhishthira instructed their army, advanced and fight, vanquished Bhishma in the battle. You will be protected by Jishnu, who is unwavering in his aims and who is trumpet over enemies. This great archer Pashata is the commander. It is certain that Bhimsena will protect you in the battle. There is no need to fear Bhishma. The Sanjayas have no task other than to fight. With Shikhandi at the forefront, there is no doubt that we will obtain victory over Bhishma. On the 10th day, the Pandavas took a vow to trump or go to Bhishma's world. They advanced senseless with rage. They placed Shikhandi and Pandava Dhananjaya at the forefront. They restored to supreme efforts to bring about Bhishma's downfall. O king of the many countries, were instructed by your son. Oh, that means kings from many countries. Okay. They were with Drona and his son, and with an immensely strong army. The powerful Dushasana was there with all the brothers. Bhishma was in the midst of the battle, and they shout to protect him. The brave ones on your side placed the one who was rigid in his vows at the forefront. In the battle, they fought with the Parthas who had placed Shikhandi at the forefront. With Shikhandi at the forefront, the Chedis, the Panchalas, and the one with the monkey on his banner advanced toward Bhishma, Shantanu's son, Drona's son, fought with Shini's grandson, and Dishtaketu with Paurava. Yudhamanyu fought with Duryodhana and his advisors, Virata and his soldiers, with Jayadratha, the scorcher of enemies, and Brihadrashtra's heir and his soldiers. The great archer, the king of Madra, fought with Yudhishthira and his soldiers. With due protection, Bhimsena advanced against the army of elephants. Drona was invincible and impossible to resist. He was supreme among those who wielded all weapons. Panchala and the Somakas advanced against him. Prince Brihadvala had a lion on his standard. He advanced against Subhadra's son, the scourger of enemies, who had a Karnikara flower on his standard. Together with the kings, your sons attacked Shikhandi and Pandava Dhananjaya in the battle, wishing to kill them. Both the armies were glorious, and the advance against each other was extremely terrible. As the soldier advanced, the earth trembled. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, the two armies clashed against each other. Both those on your side and those of the enemy were delighted to see Santanu's son in the battle. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, as they angrily advanced against each other, a terrible sound arose in every direction. There was the sound of conch shells and drums. Elephants trumpet, the soldiers roared terribly like lions. All the Indras among men had complexion that like that of the sun and the moon. The armlets and diadems, the brave ones, were lost their brilliance because of the clouds of dust that was raised. The weapons seemed to be flashes of lightning. The terrible twang of bows could be heard. There was the sound of arrows and conch shell and the great roar of drum. It both the armies, the clatter of the chariots could be heard. There were large number of spears, lances, swords, and masses of the arrows hurled by both the armies, and because of this, the sky lost its luster. In that great battle, charioteers and riders struck each other. Elephants fought with elephants, infantry with infantry. A great battle raged between the Kurus and the Pandavas for the sake of Bhishma or tiger among men. It was like hawks fighting over a piece of meat. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, there was a terrible encounter between the warriors. They sought to kill each other and defeat each other in the battle. Next chapter 112. Sanjay said, O great king, Abhimanyu fought against your valiant son, who was supported by a large army of Bhishma's sake. In the battle, Duryodhana struck Krishna's son with 9 arrows with drooping tips. He was enraged in the battle and again struck him with 3 arrows. In that encounter, Krishna's son angrily hurled a javelin towards Duryodhana's chariot. It was terrible and seemed to have been created by death itself. O Lord of the earth, on seeing it suddenly descend, wreathful in form, your Maharata son severely it into two with a Shurapra. On seeing the javelin fall down, Krishna's son became extremely enraged. He struck Duryodhana in the arms of the chest with 3 arrows, O best of the Bharata lineage. He again struck the king, the intolerant Duryodhana, between the breasts with 10 terrible arrows, O descendant of the Bharata lineage. The battle between the two was dreadful and wonderful. It created pleasure among those who witnessed it and was applauded by all the kings. For the sake of Bhishma's death and Partha's victory, those brave ones, Subhadra's and the bull among the Kurus, fought in the battle. Drona's son, bull among the Brahmanas, was enraged in the battle. The scourger of enemies struck Satyaki in the chest with an iron arrow. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, sin is descended immeasurable in his soul, struck the preceptor's son in all of his inner organs with 9 arrows shafted with the feathers of herons. In the encounter, Ashwatthama struck Satyaki with 9 arrows and again wounded him in the arms and the chest with 30. Having been thus preached by Drona's son, the immensely illustrious and great archer from the Satyavata lineage, preached Drona's son leg with 3 arrows. In the battle, Maratha Paurava covered Dishtaketu with arrows and severely wounded the great archer. However, the extremely strong Maratha Dishtaketu preached Paurava in the encounter with 30 sharp arrows. Maratha Paurava severed Dishtaketu's bow and, having preached him with sharp arrows, emitted a powerful roar. O great king, he grasped another bow and preached Paurava with 73 sharp arrows that had been wheeled on stone. Those two noble Marathas, who were great archers, rained down a great shower of arrows towards each other. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, they severed each other's bow and slew each other's horses, bereft of their chariots, and the Marathas began to fight with each other with swords. Each had a beautiful shield made out of the hide of a bull, decorated with a sign of 100 moons and marked with the sign of 100 stars. O king, they grasped extremely brilliant and polished swords and rushed towards each other. They were like lions in the great forest, wishing to have intercourse with the same female. They circled in wonderful motions, advanced and retreated. They exhibited their movements, wishing to strike each other. Incited with rage, Paurava asked Dishtaketu to wait and struck him on his frontal bone with the large sword. In the encounter, the king of Chedi struck Paurava, bull among men, on the shoulder joined with the sharp tip of his giant sword. O great king, those destroyer of enemies advanced against each other in the great battle. They struck each other with great force, and both of them fell down. O king, your son Jatsena took Paurava up on his own chariot and carried from away from the field of battle. O king, in the encounter, the powerful Sahadeva, Madri's son, and the scourger of enemies carried Dishtaketu away from the battle. Chitrasena preached Susarma with 9 swift arrows. He again preached him with 60 and yet again with 9 arrows. O Lord of the earth, in the battle Susarma became enraged with your son and preached him with 100 sharp arrows. O king, Chitrasena became angry in the battle and praised him with 30 arrows with drooping tubs and was preached back in return. O king, in the battle over Bhishma, which increased fame and honor, Subhadra's son fought with Prince Brihatbala, the king of Kaushala, preached Arjuna's son with 5 iron arrows and again preached him with 20 straight-tipped arrows. Subhadra's son preached Brihatbala with 9 iron arrows, but despite preached him again and again, he could not make him waver in the battle. Phalguna's son then separated the bow of the king of Kaushala and wounded him with 30 arrows that were tipped with the feathers of herons. But Prince Brihatwala grasped another bow and in the battle angrily preached Phalguna's son means Arjuna's son with many arrows. O scorcher of enemies, they fought this battle for Bhishma's sake, O great king. In the battle, those wonderful feathers were excited with anger and were like Maya and Vashava in the battle between gods and the Asuras. Bhimsena fought against the army of elephants. He was as resplendent as Sakra with the Vajra in his hand, having a shattering mountain. Bhima killed elephants that were like mountains. They fell down in large numbers, making the earth resound with their roars. Those shattered elephants were like large mountains and made out of collyrium. They were strewn over the ground like shattered mountains. In the battle, the great archer Yudhishthira fought with the king of Madra. He was protected by the large army and oppressed him in that encounter for the sake of Bhishma. The valiant king of Madra was enraged and afflicted the Mahabharata, who was Dharma's son. O king of Sindhu, praised Virata with 9 straight-tipped and sharp arrows and again wounded him with another 30. O great king, in the forefront of the battle, Virata struck Sandhaba between the breasts with 30 sharp arrows. Matsya and Sandhaba possessed colorful bow and swords. Their armor, weapons, and standards were handsome. They looked handsome and resplendent in the battle. Drona advanced against the son of Panchala in the great battle and used straight-tipped arrows in the great clash. O great king, Drona severed Parshata's giant bow and wounded Parshata with 50 arrows. But Parshata, the destroyer of enemy heroes, grasped another bow and in that encounter fiercely unleashed arrows at Drona. The Maratha repulsed those arrows with his own shower of arrows. Drona released 5 arrows towards Drupada's son. O great king, Parshata, the destroyer of enemies, became enraged at this. In the battle, he hurled a club towards Drona, and it was like Yama's staff, decorated with golden garments. On seeing it, suddenly descended towards him. In the battle, Drona countered it with 50 arrows. O king, because of the unassailable arrows released by Drona, it shattered into many fragments. Shattered and fragmented, it fell down on the ground. On seeing the club destroyed, Parshata, the destroyer of enemies, hurled a javelin towards Drona. It was beautiful and was completely made out of iron. O descendant of the Bharat lineage, in that battle, Drona slides it down with 9 arrows. In that encounter, he afflicted Parshata, the great archer. In the fashion, there was a great battle between Drona and Parshata. O great king, it was fearful and dreadful and was fought over Bhishma. Arjuna approached Gangeya, means Bhishma, and approached him with sharp arrows. Oppressed him with sharp arrows, he angrily advanced against him like a crazy elephant attacking another in the forest. The beautiful and immensely strong Bhagdatta counterattacked Partha on a crazy elephant that had most flowing down 3 streams. On seeing it, suddenly descended towards him like a great Indra's elephant. Vibhusu took the greatest care in repulsing it. In that encounter, the powerful king Bhagdatta was astride an elephant and countered Arjuna with a shower of arrows. In the great encounter, Arjuna used extremely sharp and polished arrows that had the complexion of silver to preach the elephant in battle. O great King Kaunteya kept addressing Shikhandi, proceed, proceed, go towards Bhishma, kill him. O Pandu's elder brother, O King Prajotisha, abandoned Pandava and quickly went towards Drupada's chariot. O great King, placing Shikhandi at the forefront, Arjuna advanced against Bhishma and in that battle an encounter commenced when the brave ones on your side fiercely attacked Pandava. All of them advanced, roaring in rage, and it was extraordinary, O Lord of Man. There were many divisions in the army of your sons. Arjuna scattered them like that wind dispersed a mass of clouds in the sky. Shikhandi approached the grandfather of the Bharatas quickly and eagerly. He pierced him with many arrows. In the battle, Bhishma killed the Sumakas who were following Partha. He repulsed the soldiers of the Maratha Pandava. The chariot was the storehouse for the fire. The bow constituted the flames. The javelins and the clubs were the kindling. He released a great shower of flaming arrows and consumed the Kshatriyas in the battle. He was like a large fire that consumed dead wood when it moves around driven by the wind. Bhishma blazed like that, showering his divine weapons. There were gold shafted, straight toothed, and sharp arrows. The immensely illustrious Bhishma rode in the directions and the subdirections. On O king, he brought down chariot and elephants with their riders. The chariots roamed around like palm trees that had been shorn of their tops, O king. In the battle, chariots, elephants, and horses were bereft of men. Bhishma, supreme among those who wield all weapons, roamed around. The clap of his palm and the twang of his bow were like the clapping of thunder, O king. In every direction the soldiers were disturbed and trembled. O Lord of men, the arrows of your father were invincible. The unassailable arrows released by Bhishma never failed to penetrate the bodies. O king, the chariots had no men, but they were still yoked to swift horses. O Lord of earth, with the speed of the wind, we saw them being dragged around in different directions. There were 14,000 famous Maharathas from the Chedis, the Kashis, and the Karushas. They were born in noble lineages and were ready to give up their lives. These brave ones did not retreat from battle. Their standards were decorated in gold. With their horses, chariots, and elephants, they advanced in battle against Bhishma, and confronting the one who was like death with a gaping mouth, they left for the other world. O great king, there was not a single Maratha among the Somakas who living approached Bhishma in that battle, returned alive from the engagement. In that battle, he sent all those warriors to the capital of the king of the dead. On seeing them conveyed there, all the people witnessed Bhishma's valor. The only exceptions were Pandu's brave son, horned on white horses and with Krishna as his charioteer, and Panchala Shikhandi, who was infinitely enraged in battle. Obul among the Bharata lineage, Shikhandi approached Bhishma in that battle and in the great encounter struck him with 100 arrows. Gangeya glanced at Shikhandi with anger blazing in his eyes. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, he seemed to burn him down with the look in his eyes, O king. But while all the world looked on, he remembered that he was a woman. Bhishma did not strike him in battle, though he did not understand the reason. O great king, Arjuna addressed Shikhandi, advanced quickly and killed the grandfather. O brave one, what do you wish to say? Kill Mahatma Bhishma. I do not see anyone else in Yudhishthira's army who can kill him. Nor is there anyone who can fight with grandfather Bhishma in this battle. You are the exception, O tiger among men. I am telling this truthfully, O bull among the Bharata lineage. Having been thus addressed by Partha, Shikhandi quickly preached the grandfather with many kinds of arrows. Your father Devbrata paid no heed to these arrows. Enraged in the battle, he countered Arjuna with arrows, O Venerable One. In that encounter, he released sharp arrows and dispatched all the soldiers of Mahabharata Pandava to the other world. O king, approached by their large army, the Pandavas surrounded Bhishma and enveloped him like clouds around the sun. O bull among the Bharata lineage, or descent of the Bharata lineage, was covered in every direction. In that battle, he consumed the enemy like a flaming fire burns down a forest. We then beheld the extraordinary manliness of your son, so as to protect the one who was rigid in his vows. He fought with Partha. All the worlds were gratified at the deeds of your great souled archer son Dusasana in that battle. He alone fought with Partha and his followers and fought so fiercely that the Pandavas were unable to resist him. O great king, in that encounter Dushasana deprived Rathas of their chariots and tuskers of their riders. He shattered them with sharp arrows and brought them down on the ground. With other arrows he drove the tuskers away in different directions. He was like a fire that was obtained kindling and blazed with fierce flames. In that way, your son blazed and consumed the Pandavas. No Pandava Maratha could defeat the noble one of the Bharata lineage, nor did anyone venture against him. The only exception was the great Indra's son, born on white steeds and with Krishna as his charioteer. O king, Vijay Arjun defeated him in that encounter while all the soldiers looked on. He then advanced against Bhishma. Through he had been vanquished, your son restored to the strength of Bhishma's arms. O king, intoxicated in that battle, he repeatedly comforted his side and continued to fight resplendently against Arjuna. O king, in that battle Shikhandi preached the grandfather with arrows that were like the vajra to the touch and were like the poison of serpents, O Lord of men. But this did not cause your father any pain. Ganga received all these arrows with smile, like a man suffering from heat craves the pouring down of slain rain. In that fashion, Ganga received the shower of arrows from Shikhandi. So this is between Shikhandi and Bhishma. O great king, as Bhishma consumed the soldiers of the great soul Pandavas, the Kshatriyas saw his terrible visage in that battle. O venerable one, your son spoke to all the soldiers, attack Falguna in the battle and surround him with chariots from all sides. Bhishma is knowledgeable about dharma and will protect all of us in this battle. Give up your great fear and counterattack the Pandavas. There is the blazing palm tree. Bhishma is stationed there and is protecting us, and the honor and the armor of all the sons of Dhritarashtra in this battle. Even if the 30 gods endeavor, they cannot assail Bhishma, not to speak of the great soul Partha and his soldiers. They were mortal beings, O warriors, therefore do not run away. We have obtained Falguna in this battle. I will endeavor to fight against Falguna, means Arjuna, in the battle today. Together with all of you, O Lord of the earth, make efforts, O King. On hearing the words of your archer sons, the powerful Marathas united against Arjuna. Videhas, Kalingas, and large number of Dasharakas with the Nishadas and Sobiras, the Balikas, the Sharadas, those from the east, those from the west, the Malabas, the Sibis, and the Vashatas and Shalvas, the Trigatas, the Ambastas, and the Kekyas advanced in the great battle. They attacked Partha in the encounter like insects drowned to a fire. A great king, O great king, the Maharathas were with all their armies. Dhananjay invoked and afflicted divine weapons, Bibhatsu, The immensely strong one quickly released those extremely forceful weapons and consumed them with his arrows like a fire before insects. The one with the firm bow created thousands of arrows. Gandiva was seen to be blazing in the sky. O great king, oppressed by those arrows, the chariots and the standards were shattered. The kings could not approach the one with the monkey on his banner. Rathas were brought down with their standards, horses with their riders, elephants with elephant riders. They were afflicted with Kiriti's arrows. Created those Arjuna's arms, the earth was strewn in all directions with the many forces of kings, which were running away. The mighty armed Partha drove away those armies. In that encounter, he then dispatched arrows towards Dushasana. They possessed iron heads and they preached your son Dushasana. All of them then entered the ground like snakes penetrating a termite hill. He killed his horses and brought down his charioteer. The Lord used 20 arrows to deprive Bibhinshati of his chariot. He severely wounded him with 5 arrows. With drooping tubes, he pierced Kripa, Shalya, and Vikarna with many iron arrows. Kontia, borne on white steeds, deprived them of their chariot. O Venerable One, having been deprived of their chariots and having been vanquished in battle by Sabyasachi, means Arjun, these five, Kripa, Shalya, Dushasana, Vikarna, and Vimishati, fled. O king, having defeated those Marathas in the forenoon, Partha blazed in the battle like a fire without any smoke. He shot down arrows like a rays of the sun. O great king, he brought down many other kings, O descendant of the Bharata lineage. Because of that shower of arrows, the Marathas retreated from the field of battle, and a great river of blood began to flow between the armies of the Kurus and the Pandavas. Elephant horses and large number of rathas were slain by the rathas. Rathas killed elephants and elephants killed horses and infantry. Bodies were sliced in the middle and heads lopped off. Elephants, horses, chariots, and warriors fell down in all directions. The shattered bodies were still radiant with expensive earrings and armlets. Princes and Maharathas fell down or were falling down. Some were mangled by the wheels of chariots, others were trod on by elephants and horses, foot soldiers, horses with horse riders, elephants, horses, and masses of chariots were seen to fall down in every direction. The earth was littered with broken chariots and shattered wheels, yokes, and standards. The masses of elephants, horses, and chariots were covered with blood. It looked as beautiful as an autumn sky covered with red cloud. Dogs, crows, vultures, wolves, jackals, and other dreadful animals and birds howled at the sight of the feast of flesh. Many kinds of winds were seen to blow in all directions. Rakshasas and demons were seen to be roaring. Golden globes and expensive flags were seen to be covered in smoke. Suddenly, stirred by the wind, there were thousands of white, unparalleled and pennants of the Maharathas. They were seen to be scattered around in hundreds of and thousands. Elephants were afflicted by arrows and fled in all directions with their standards. O Indra, among men, Kshatriyas holding clubs, jewels, and bows were seen to have fallen down on the ground. O great king, Bhishma used a divine weapon and in the sight of all the archers advanced against Kaunteya in that battle. The armored shikhandi also endeavored to attack. At this, Bhishma withdrew that weapon, which was like the fire. At this time, Kaunteya, borne on white horses, confounded the grandfather and killed your soldiers. Next chapter 113. Sanjay said, O descendant of the Bharata lineage, there were many in the ranks of both the sides, and they were arrived in Vyuhas, all of them advanced, aspiring to attain Bhishma's world. In the encounter that followed, similar types of soldiers did not fight. Rathas did not fight with rathas, nor foot soldiers with foot soldiers. Horses did not fight with horses, nor elephants, nor warriors on elephants. In that great and dreadful clash between the armies, there were perversions. There were men, elephants, and chariots scattered all over the places. In that great and terrible destruction, there was no discrimination. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, Salya, Kripa, Chitrasena, Dushasana, and Vikarna quickly restored to their chariots. Those brave ones made the standards of the Pandavas tremble in the battle. In the encounter, the soldiers of the Pandus were slaughtered by those great sword ones. They could not find a protector and were like a boat submerged in the water, just as the winter strikes the inner organs of cattle, like that Bhishma wounded the inner organs of the sons of Pandu. The great soul Partha did likewise towards your soldiers. Many elephants that were like mountains of clouds were brought down. Partha was also seen to bring down leaders among men. He struck them with thousands of iron arrows. The great elephants were seen to fall down. There, shrieking piteously, great souled ones were killed, their bodies still adorned with ornaments. There were beautiful and scattered heads still wearing earrings. O king, that extremely terrible encounter was destructive of the supreme among brave ones. Bhishma fought with the valiant Pandava Dhananjaya, O king. On witnessing the valor with which the grandfather fought, the Kauravas placed Bhishma's world at the forefront and did not retreat. They wished to be killed in battle so that they might attain heaven. The Pandavas did not retreat from that destruction of the supreme among brave ones either. O great king, O lord of men, the Pandavas remembered the many and varied hardship that they had to suffer earlier on account of you and your son. The brave ones had abandoned fear in that battle and pitched Brahma's world at that forefront. They cheerfully fought with your son and those on your side. In that battle, the Maratha commander addressed the soldiers, O Somakas, together with the Sanjayas attacked Gangeya, means Bhishma. On hearing the words of the commander, the Somakas, together with the Sanjayas, attacked Gangeya and showered down weapons on him from every direction. O king, thus assailed your father Shantanu's son, became intolerant and started to fight with the Sanjayas, O father. His achievements were glorious. In earlier times, the intelligent Rama, means Parshurama, had imparted an instruction of weapon to him. On that could destroy the armies of enemies, he restored to that instruction capable of destroying the force of the enemy. The aged grandfather of the Kurus, Bhishma, slew 10,000 of enemy. He rose from the rank of the Parthas every day, or descent of the birth lineage. But with the 10th day having been reached, Bhishma alone slew 7 Maharathas from the Matsya and the Panchalas in the encounter and killed innumerable elephants and horses. In that great battle, the great grandfather killed 5,000 Rathas and 14,000 men. He again killed 1,000 elephants and 10,000 horses. O Lord of the earth, your father killed them through the strength of his instruction. He agitated the ranks of all the kings and brought down Virata's beloved brother Shatanika. O great king, having killed Shatanika in that battle, the beautiful Bhishma brought down another 1,000 kings with broad-headed arrows. In the army of the Parthas, there were kings who had followed Dhananjaya. Whichever one among these approached Bhishma was sent to Yama's abode. In that way, Bhishma remained at the head of the army and suppressed the soldiers of the Parthas. He covered them and all the 10 directions with his net of arrows. He performed extremely great deeds on the 10th day. With the bow and arrows, he was stationed between the two armies. O king, none of the kings were capable of gazing at him. He was like the scorching midday sun in the sky during the summer, O descent of the Bharata lineage, just as Sakra scorched the army of the Daityas in the battle, Bhishma scorched that of the Pandavas. On witnessing his valor, Madhusudana, the son of Devaki, affectionately spoke these words to Dhananjaya. This Bhishma, Santanu's son, is stationed between the two armies. Kill him with your power and become victorious. He is scattering our soldiers there. Go and use your strength to repulse him there. O Lord, no one other than you is capable of withstanding Bhishma's arrow. O King, the one with the monkey on his banner was hesitated at that moment. He used his arrows to make Bhishma, his standard, his chariot, and his horses disappear. But the bull, the foremost among the Kurus, entered Pandava's arrows with his own torrent of arrows and dispersed the many showers of arrows that had been targeted towards him. O great king, a valiant Dishiketu, the king of Panchala, Pandava, Bhimsena, Parshata, Dishtidumya, the twins, Chekitana, the five from Kekeya, Satyaki, Subhadra's son, Ghatotkaja, Draupadi's son, Shikhandi, the brave Kuntiboja, Susharma, Birata, and many other immensely strong ones among the Pandavas were oppressed by Bhishma's arrows and was immersed in an ocean of grief. Falguna rescued them with great force. Shikhandi grasped a supreme weapon protected by Kriti. He dashed towards Bhishma, knowing what must be done in the battle. The victorious Bhibhutsu killed all the followers and himself rushed against Bhishma. Satyaki, Chekitana, Parshada, Dishtidumya, Virata, Drupada, and the Pandavas, who were Madri's son, also attacked Bhishma, protected by the one who bow was firm. In that battle, Abhimanyu and Draupadi's five sons also attacked Bhishma in the encounter. Holding up great weapons, all of them were firm in wielding the bow and never ran away from the field of battle. They preached Bhishma uh, with well aimed arrows of all over his body. However, the one whose soul was never distressed disregarded all those arrows released by the best of kings, the penetrated and the Pandava army. As if smiling, the grandfather repulsed all those arrows. Bhishma smiled repeatedly at Panchala Shikhandi and remembering that he had been a woman, did not target a single arrow at him, but he killed 7 Marathas from Drupada's army of Rathas. Cries of lamentation then arose among the Matsya, the Panchalas, and the Chedis, all of whom had attacked the solitary one with supreme hero horses and a cluster of chariots, elephants, and foot soldiers. They enveloped the solitary one like clouds around the sun. Bhishma, the son of Bhagirathi, scorched many enemies in the battle. There was a battle between Bhishma and Kriti, who placed Shikhandi at the forefront there, like that of between the gods and the Asuras. Next chapter 114. Sanjay said, all the Pandavas placed Shikhandi at the head, or descendant of the Bharata lineage. In that encounter, they surrounded Bhishma from all sides and wounded him. Using extremely terrible satagnis, javelins, battle axes, clubs, maces, spears, many types of catapults, gold-tipped arrows, spikes, lances, kampanas, iron arrows, vatsadantas, and slings. Together with all the Sanjayas, they assailed Bhishma. His armor was shattered and he was oppressed everywhere in many ways, but despite having been preached in his inner organs, Gangya was not distressed. The radiant bow and arrows and weapons seemed to be like the flames of the fire fanned by the wind. The roar of the wheel of his chariot was the head. His great weapons constituted the fire itself. His colorful bow was extremely resplendent, and the one with the great bow was the destroyer of the brave ones. Bhishma was like the fire and the end of a yuga. Traversing through the endeavor, he passed and brought down masses of chariots in that battle. He was again seen roaming around in the midst of those kings among men. He ignored the king of Panchala and Dishiketu and forcefully penetrated into the midst of the Pandava army. He preached Satyaki, Bhima, Pandava, Dhananjaya, Drupada, Virat, and Parshata Dishtidumya with extremely forceful arrows that could penetrate the armor of enemies. These six were struck with arrows that made a terrible roar and were as radiant as the sun. However, the Maharathas repulsed those sharp arrows. Each of them struck Bhishma with great energy, using 10 arrows each. In that battle, Shikhandi released arrows towards the one who was great in his vows. This was gold looped and sharpened on stone and swiftly penetrated Bhishma, placing Shikhandi at the forefront. Kriti immensely attacked Bhishma and severed his bow. When Bhishma's bow was sliced down, the Maratha Drona, Kritavarma, Sandhyava, Jayadratha, Bhurishava, Shalya, and Bhagdatta could not tolerate this. Extremely enraged, these seven attacked Kriti. Kriti means Arjun. The Marathas displayed supreme and divine weapons. They attacked in great anger and enveloped Pandava. As they advanced towards Falguna, sound could be heard. It was like the sound being raised by the oceans at the time of the destruction of a yuga. Being forward, grabs fight slice of such was tumultuous sounds as they advanced towards Falguna's chariot. O belonging the Bharata lineage, on hearing that dreadful sound, the Pandava Marathas attacked so as to protect Falguna. Satyaki, Bhimsena, Parshata, Dishtidumya, Virata, Drupada, Rakshasa, Ghatotkacha, and Abhimanyu. These seven were enraged and became senseless with anger. They wielded colorful bow and swiftly advanced. The battle that commenced was dreadful and made the body hair stand up. O best of the Bharata lineage, it was like the battle between the gods and the Danavas. Kriti, best among the Rathas, was protected by Krishna, and in that battle, after Bhishma's bow had been severed, pierced him with 10 arrows, he struck down his chariot with 10 and his standard with 1. Gangya grasped a bow that was more powerful. However, Falguna sliced that down with a sharp and broad-headed arrow. Pandava was enraged and was one after another. Sabyasachi, the scorcher of enemies, severed every bow that Bhishma took up. Pandava was enraged and one after another. Sabyasachi, the scorcher of enemies, severed every bow that Bhishma took up. Okay. When the bows were severed, he became wrathful and licked the corners of the mouth. In great wrath, he grasped a javelin that was capable of shattering mountains. In anger, he hurled this towards Falguna's chariot. On seeing this descent like the flaming Vajra, the descent of the Pandava lineage, brought the javelin down with 5 sharp and broad-headed arrows. O best of the Bharata lineage, when that javelin hurled angrily by Bhishma's powerful arms was separated with 5 arrows by the enraged Kriti, it was shattered and fell down on the ground like lightning dislodged from a mass of clouds. On seeing that the javelins had fallen down, Bhishma was overcome with anger. In that battle, the brave and intelligent one, the destroyer of cities of enemies, began to think, I am capable of slaying all the Pandavas with a single bow. Had the immensely strong Vishwaksena not seen their protector now? There are 2 reasons for me not to fight with the Pandavas. The Pandus cannot be killed, and Shikhandi's femininity. In earlier times, when my father married Kali, my father was satisfied and granted me the boon that I would be invincible in battle except when I decided to die myself. I think the time has come for me to decide on my death on learning that this was a decision of my infinite energies. Bhishma, the rishis and the Vashus who were stationed in the sky spoke these words to Bhishma, O brave one, we are extremely delighted with the decision you have taken, O great archer. Act in accordance with your decision and withdraw from the battle. When those words were spoken, the auspicious and fragrant breeze began to blow in all the directions. It was moistened with drops of water that smelt nice. The drums of the gods were sounded with a great roar. O king, a shower of flowers fell down on Bhishma. O king, but the words spoken were not heard by anyone there, with the exception of the mighty armed Bhishma and me. Because of the energetic sage, O Lord of the earth, there were great agitation among the 30 gods that at the, at the protect of Bhishma, beloved of all the worlds, falling down from the chariot, having heard the words of the masses of the gods, the great-minded one Bhishma Santanu's son dashed towards Bibhatsu, through he had been pierced by sharp arrows that were capable of penetrating every kinds of armor. O great king, Shikhandi angrily struck the grandfather of the Bharatas in the chest with 9 sharp arrows. In that battle, Bhishma, the grandfather of the Kurus, was wounded by him, O great king, but he did not tremble and was like a mountain during an earthquake. Bibhusu laughed and drew back the Gandiva bow. He preached Gangeya with 25 Shurapras. Dhananjaya was enraged and again swiftly struck him all over the body with 100 arrows that penetrated all his inner organs. In the great battle, the others also wounded him severely, but these gold-tipped arrows, serpented on stone, did not cause him the slightest bit of pain. Placing Shikhandi at the forefront, the Rathpurkriti attacked Bhishma and severed his bow once again. He pierced him with 10 arrows and slashed down his standard with one. He struck his chariot with 10 arrows and made him tremble. Gangeya took up another bow that was stronger still. In that great battle, in the twinkle of an eye, and as soon as the other bow was taken up, Dhananjaya severed it into three with sharp and broad-headed arrows. In this fashion, he severed many bows. At this, Bhishma, Santanu's son, determined that he would not fight with Bibhatsu anymore. However, he was praised by 25 Shudrakas and thus praised. The great archer spoke to Dushasana, the Mahabharata Pandava Partha is enraged in the battle. In this encounter, he has shot many thousands of arrows towards me. No one is capable of vanquishing him in battle. No, not even the wielder of the Vajra. No brave one is capable of defeating me. The gods and the Danavas and the Rakshasas, not to speak of extremely weak mortals. While he was speaking thus, Phalguna placed Shikhandi in the forefront of the battle and pierced Bhishma with sharp arrows. Bhishma was severely pierced by the sharp arrows releasing by the wielder of the Gandiva. He smiled and spoke to Dushasana again. These are like Vajra and thunder of the touch. They are sharp at the tip and have been released well. They have been shot in a continuous stream. This cannot be Shikhandi's arrows. They have penetrated my firm armor and have mingled my inner organs. They have struck me with the force of clubs. This cannot be Shikhandi's arrows. These are like Brahma stuff to the touch. They possess the force of the Vajra and are impossible to resist. They are robbing me of my life. These cannot be Shikhandi's arrows. They are like angry serpents, full of virulent poison and with their tongues protruding. They are penetrating my inner organs. These cannot be Shikhandi's arrows. These are destroying my life like messengers sent by Yama. They are like clubs and masses to the touch. These cannot be Shikhandi's arrows. They are slicing through my body like the mouth of Maga distressed cattle. These are Arjuna's arrows. These cannot be Shikhandi's arrows. All the kings together cannot cause me my grief. The only exception is the brave Jishnu, means Arjun, the wielder of Gandiva and with the monkey on his banner. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, having spoken this, Shantanu's son hurled a javelin as if he was going to burn up Pandava. It was flaming at the tip and had sparks throughout, O descendant of the Bharata lineage. While all the brave ones among the Kurus looked on, he used sharp arrows to sever it into three and made the three parts fall down. At this, Gangya grasped a shield that was made of gold and a sword. He was determined to obtain victory or go to the world of the hereafter. But before he could get down from his chariot, the armored one shattered the shield into 100 pieces, and it was extraordinary. He rode like a lion and incited with soldiers, attack Gangeya. Do not have the uh, slightest bit of fear. With javelins, lances, masses of arrows from every direction, spears, swords, many of weapons, vatsadantas, and broad-headed arrows, all of them attacked the one who was fighting single-handed. The Pandavas let out terrible roars like lions. O king, your son wished to see the Bhishma was victorious. They surrounded him and roared like lions. O Indra among king, O on the 10th day, when Bhishma and Arjuna clashed, there was a dreadful battle between those on your side and those from the enemy. In a short while, there was a whirlpool like when Ganga meets the ocean. The soldiers fought, wishing to kill each other because it was covered with blood. The earth became difficult to cross. It was impossible to distinguish the plain ground from the uneven. On the 10th day, stationed in the battle, through he was preached in his vital organs, Bhishma killed 10,000 warriors. In a similar way, Partha Dhananjaya was stationed at the forefront of the army and drove away the soldiers from the center of the Kuru army. We were scared of Dhananjaya, Kunti's son, who was carried on white horses. We were oppressed by his sharp arrows and fled from the great battle. The Shaubiras, the Kitavas, most among the Its, those from the west, those from the east, those from the west, those from the north, the Malavas, Avishas, Shibis, Shalvas, Shreyas, Trigartas, Kakyas, warriors from these 12 countries were wounded and oppressed by the arrows. While Kirti was fighting in the battle, wishing to kill Bhishma, the single one was surrounded by many from all directions. They defeated all the other Kurus and showered him with arrows. Bring down, seized priest, tear, O king. These and other tumultuous sounds were heard around Bhishma's chariot, having slain hundreds and thousands with his shower of arrows. There wasn't even the palm of a single finger on his body that was not mangled. While your sons looked on, thus the Lord your father was wounded with sharp-tipped arrows released by Falguna and fell down from his chariot. There was a little bit of a day left. When Bhishma fell down from his chariot, great sound of lamentation were heard from the gods in the heaven and the kings in every direction. On seeing that the great soul grandfather had fallen down, together with Bhishma, all our hearts also fell down. When the mighty armed one fell down, the earth seemed to roar. The great archer fell down like an uprooted pole that has been erected in Indra's honor because he was covered with a large number of arrows. He did not touch the ground. The great archer, bull among men, was supine on a bed of arrows when he fell down from the chariot. A divine incest permitted him. The clouds showered rain and the earth trembled. The fight was not against Bhishma Arjuna, it's shikhandi. When he fell down, it was seen that the sun was diminished. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, the brave one did not allow his senses to depart, but through about the right time he heard divine voices from everywhere in the sky. Why should the great soul Gangeya, tiger among men, and the supreme among those who wield all weapons decide on a time that in Dakshinayana? On hearing these words, Gangeya replied, I am still the heir. Though he had fallen down on the ground, he retained his life. Bhishma, the grandfather of the Kurus, wished to wait till Uttarayana. Knowing his decision, Ganga, the daughter of the Himalayas, sent Maharishi to him in the form of swans. Adopting the form of swans from Manasa, they swiftly arrived to see Bhishma, the grandfather of the Kurus. The grandfather, the best of man, was lying down on his bed of arrows in the form of swans. The sages approached Bhishma. They saw Bhishma, the grandfather of the Kurus, on his bed of arrows. On seeing him, the great soul ones circumambulated Gangeya, the best of the Bharata lineage. The learned ones spoke to each other. The sun is in the south now. Why should the great soul Bhishma depart during Dakshinayana? Having spoken in this way, the swans started to leave for the southern direction. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, on seeing this, the immensely intelligent one began to think. Santanu's son then said, I will never depart when the sun remains in the south. This is my resolution. I will leave for my earlier abode when the sun moves on the north. The swans have spoken the truth. I will retain my life. Wishing for Uttarayana, I have always have complete control about when I would give up my life. Therefore, I will retain my life, wishing to die during the northern course. This is the vow that my great soul father granted me. His boon was that I could determine my time of death and let that come true. Since I possess control, I will retain my life lying down on the bed of arrows. He spoke these words to the swans. When the immensely energetic Bhishma, the head of the Kurus, fell down, the Pandava and the Sanjays roared like lion. O bull among the Bharata lineage, when that great spirit among the Bharata was brought down, your son did not know what do you. There was dreadful confusion among the Kurus then. With Duryodhana at the head, the king sighed and wept. For a very long time they were immersed in sorrow and were deprived of their senses. O great king, they were immobile and their minds were no longer on the fight. It was as if they had been grabbed by the thighs. They did not advance against the Pandavas. The immensely energetic Bhishma, Santanu's son, who was incapable of being killed, had been brought down. O king, the great destruction of the Kurus seemed certain. The foremost among the brave ones had been brought down, mangled by sharp arrows. He had been vanquished by Sabyasachi, and we did not know what we should do. The Pandavas were victorious and obtained their supreme objective. All of those brave ones used arms like clubs to sound giant councils. O Lord of men, the Somakas and the Panchalas were delighted. Those extremely powerful ones sounded thousands of lamborghinies. Bhimsena slapped his arms and roared dreadfully. When Gangeya had been brought down, the brave ones in both the armies laid down their weapons. Some lamented, others ran around, and still others lost their senses. Others censured the life of Kshatriyas and honored Bhishma. The rishis and the ancestors praised the one who was great in vows. The ancestor of the Bharatas also praised him. The valiant one restored to the yoga described in the great Upanishads. The intelligent one meditated and remained there wishing for the right time. Next chapter 115. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjay, what was the state of the warriors? So Sanjay was also present in that Mahabharat war. Afterwards, Sanjay told everything to Dhritarashtra. What was the state of the warriors without Bhishma? He was powerful and was like a god. He follows brahmacharya for the sake of the senior. When Bhishma did not strike Drupada's son because he despised him, I thought that the Kurus and the other kings had been killed. I cannot think of the greater misery. I am evil minded and have heard about my father being brought down. O Sanjaya, my head must certainly be made out of stone. On hearing that Bhishma had been brought down, it was not shattered into 100 fragments. I cannot even think about Devbrata being brought down in the battle. In earlier times, he could not be slain by Jamadagni's son Parashurama despite this use of divine weapons. What did Bhishma, lion among men, and the one who desired victory, do when he had been brought down? O Sanjay, tell me. Sanjay replied, he was brought down on the ground in the evening. On seeing the aged grandfather of the Kurus, the sons of the Dhritarashtra were distressed, and the Panchalas were delighted. Okay, that's all. This is Bhishma Parva.